Starting a renovation project? Start right. Start here at H&L Rapid True Value for all your essentials at our 10 stores island-wide. The time by H&L Rapid True Value is
nationwide time, 5 o'clock.
Crisp and refreshing. Room temperature or chilled. A pure water would drink. The temperature by Pure Water is
31 degrees Celsius in Kingston, 30 out west in Montego Bay.
From the Nationwide News Network, comprehensive, incisive, tough. This is Nationwide at 5.
Good afternoon, I'm Ricardo Brooks.
And I'm Robianne Williams.
In Nationwide News at this hour, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has accused opposition leader Mark Golding of jeopardizing Jamaica's move to become a republic.
At this point, and clearly in the minds of many people who have experienced and studied this issue, would have put the progress towards the Republican status in jeopardy.
And MP Robert Miller says the opposition leader should step down in light of his British citizenship and stop obstructing the constitutional reform process.
Dr. Lloyd Barnett says a secret ballot to elect the president of a future Jamaican republic would not be in violation of the country's democratic principles.
By virtue of the nature of the particular vote, I don't think it's as important as this is a vote on policy or something like that.
PNPYO says claims it was consulted during the constitutional reform process are misleading.
The Prime Minister has expressed sadness at the passing of CEO of the Universal Service Fund USF, Dr. Daniel Dawes.
In news from the rest of the world, American is flying home after getting suspended sentence for ammo possession in Turks and Caicos.
Security Council approves resolution decrying attacks on United Nations aid workers and demanding protection.
In headline sports, Elaine Thompson-Hera and Sha'Carri Richardson in big 100 meters clash in the U.S. tomorrow.
And later in our broadcast, in the cover story at 5:35, the Constitutional Reform Committee is recommending that the Jamaican president be appointed by a two-step process, including a secret ballot. Should that vote be secret? Members of the CRC, Dr. Nadine Spence and Sir J. Boswell will join us.
In Public Opinion at 6:26, we ask, saltfish or red herring? Give us your comments by logging on to our Facebook page, Nationwide News Network, and by tweeting us at Nationwide Radio and message us on WhatsApp at 876-285-5693. You can also leave your comments on Instagram at Nationwide 90FM.
In the nation's business at 6:40, the Turks and Caicos Islands has described as regrettable comments by a U.S. congressman that the island's government is targeting American citizens after 5 American tourists were charged by the police in the TCI for possession of ammunition. King's Counsel Oliver Smith will join us to discuss the possible impacts of the congressman's comments.
And at 8, it's the A-Team with Dennis Brooks.
All these and more as we take you home on air, on your mobile, Nationwide 90 FM, Nationwide Radio, JM.com, and on the Nationwide app, available on the Google Play and the App Store. This Friday afternoon, it's Friday, May 24, 2024.
News at 5 is brought to you by Fostrich Company Limited, fostering rich customer service.
If it's news, it's got to be Nationwide 90 FM.
And now to the details. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says opposition leader Mark Golding's insistence that Jamaica cede to the appellate jurisdiction of the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, has jeopardized the move to have the country become a republic. He made the comments in Clarendon on Friday. Mr. Holness says Mark Golding's refusal to accept that the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, has a more nuanced position on the CCJ than that taken by the PNP has put the process at risk.
That has, at this point, and clearly in the minds of many people who have experienced and studied this issue, would have put the progress towards the Republican status in jeopardy, because there is a parliamentary hurdle to overcome, which is the need for a three-quarter majority vote in Parliament, meaning both the lower house and in the Senate, we need a supermajority. And then there is the referendum, which it was always the case that for that referendum to be successful, both parties would have to go to the people as one.
The Prime Minister has indicated the JLP is in favor of having a local final appellate court, but would put the matter to the Jamaican people in a referendum. Mr. Holness says despite the present impasse, he does not believe the differences between the two major political parties cannot be overcome. He says he has given instructions that dialogue continue towards reaching consensus. Mr. Holness is seeking to assure Jamaicans that his administration remains committed to seeing the process through to the end.
The politicization which has happened in the past few weeks could, if left by itself, derail the process. So my intervention is not so much to talk about the technical issues as to what is in the report, but to reassure the people of Jamaica, especially those persons who would want to see Jamaica become a republic in their lifetime, that all is not lost, that the government is still going to pursue it and pursue it to its logical conclusion.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister says the opposition leader should carefully reflect on the contents of the report of the Constitutional Reform Committee, CRC, and allow the country to move forward on becoming a republic.
And I think these are matters that the leader of the opposition should consider very carefully and allow the country to move forward, as it is the wish and desire of most Jamaicans to see.
The CRC has recommended that Commonwealth citizens lose the right to sit in Parliament. Mr. Golding, by virtue of his British citizenship, is a dual citizen. He has recommended that the right remain. Holness says Mr. Golding should not allow a single issue to derail the entire constitutional reform process.
I think that he should seek to have what is well agreed, even my view within his own party, that they should move towards having this attained and not let this view that is expressed, this recommendation in the report, stymie the entire report.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness.
And Member of Parliament for South East St. Catherine, the JLP's Robert Miller, says the opposition leader should step down in light of the revelation of his British citizenship. Mr. Miller is also accusing Mr. Golding of pursuing tactics to distract from what he sees as the opposition leader's grave disloyalty and hesitancy to fully commit to Jamaica. Shaloy Smikle tells us more.
In a statement on Friday, Mr. Miller described Mr. Golding as the British leader of the Jamaican opposition. He says the opposition PNP has sought to raise issues that are of absolutely no relevance to the core matter at hand. He says that at a time when Jamaica is on the verge of becoming a republic, Mr. Golding is obstructing the process. The Southeast St. Catherine MP also questions whether the opposition leader sees no ethical conflict in encouraging everyone else to give up the British monarch while retaining his privileges and allegiance. Mr. Miller says this is further complicated by the last-minute withdrawal of consensus by Mr. Golding from the constitutional review process. He's also concerned that Mr. Golding seems hesitant to relinquish his British citizenship while hiding behind the notion that it is permissible in law. Mr. Miller says these are the real issues, and no amount of distraction on the part of the opposition can cure this fundamental breach. The Southeast St. Catherine MP says the position of the British leader of the Jamaican opposition remains untenable and incurable. He says as a young Jamaican, he is disturbed and offended that Mr. Golding would have sought to lead the country while retaining citizenship and allegiance to another country. Shaloy Smikle for Nationwide News.
The youth arm of the People's National Party, the PNP, has labelled claims by Constitutional Reform Committee member Sujay Boswell that it was consulted during the constitutional reform process as misleading. Mr. Boswell cited the group as one that was consulted during the Constitutional Reform Committee CRC's communication with youth stakeholders island-wide. Mahira Stewart has that story.
Speaking Wednesday at a post-cabinet media briefing at the office of the Prime Minister, Mr. Boswell listed the PNP-YO as well as the PNP Patriots as youth groups the CRC consulted throughout their process.
Throughout the past year, we've engaged groups such as the PNP-YO, the PNP Patriots, In fact, members of the opposition, led by Donna Scott Motley, Senator Donna Scott Motley, as well as Minister Malahoo Fort, was a part of those conversations. We would have met with G2K and other politically aligned youth groups. We would have met with the National Youth Council of Jamaica, the different National Secondary Students Council, the Jamaica Prefects Association, and other nationally representative youth bodies, because we understand that this is a process that it needs to be inclusive.
In response to Mr. Boswell's comments, the PNPYO on the social media platform X says Mr. Boswell's claims of consultation are not in line with the definition of the word. In a lengthy thread, it says they met with Legal Affairs Minister Marlene Malahoo Fort and Opposition Spokesperson on Justice, Senator Donna Scott Motley, on May 12, 2023. The PNPYO described the meeting as more of a question and answer session as opposed to an opportunity to present their views. The group even labeled the minister's participation in this meeting as perfunctory, adding that she refrained from including openness in their discussion. The group says it believes that the process was too early for them to provide meaningful input on matters. The PNPYO says it then requested a follow-up engagement following the May 12 meeting, which Minister Malahoo Fort agreed to. However, it says the follow-up meeting never materialized. The group's thread ended with it calling on the committee to revisit its method of engagement with young people. Mahiri Stewart for Nationwide News.
Constitutional attorney Dr. Lloyd Barnett says a secret ballot to elect the president of a future Jamaican republic would not be in violation of the country's democratic principles. He's explaining the thinking behind the recommendation made in the Constitutional Reform Committee report. However, Mr. Barnett argues that a means to achieve consensus should be paramount in order to avoid political deadlock. Siobhan Campbell tells us more.
According to the CRC report, optimally, the president would be selected through a two-stage process. Nomination is to be done by the Prime Minister after consultation with the leader of the opposition, with a view at arriving at consensus. Confirmation is then to be done by the Parliament in a joint sitting of both houses, where each house votes separately by secret ballot. The vote required to confirm the nominee is an affirmative vote of 2/3 majority in each house. However, where no consensus can be reached, each house should be empowered to make a separate nomination for confirmation by the Parliament. This would be done in a joint sitting where each house votes separately by secret ballot. However, instead of an affirmative vote of 2/3, the successful nominee would be confirmed by an absolute majority of each house. Mr. Barnett supports the move in principle.
Yes, in the event of a dispute or the matter coming to a stalemate, then you must find a solution. So that one alternative would be to have the decision made in a secret ballot in which the votes are counted either together or separately with both houses sitting together. So that what we try to do is to find a method by which, if there is a lack of consensus, it can be resolved.
The constitutional attorney says he holds no strong view as to whether the ballot should be held in secrecy. However, he doesn't believe such a move is a violation of the democratic principles when used in such a narrow process.
I think maybe it's better secret in the sense that people feel freer to vote according to their choice rather than having to go and defend it afterwards, because this is such a personal choice, because you're not selecting somebody because of any policy differences or, you're selecting the person because you think that person can effectively represent the nation. I don't know that this is something in which, you necessarily think it is undemocratic if the vote is not disclosed. It's selecting one individual to occupy a position, but that's something which could be considered. But I don't think it is by virtue of the nature of the particular vote, I don't think it's as important as this is a vote on policy or something like that.
However, he says it would be best to find a means to have an overall consensus.
In constitution, as in other matters, commercial or otherwise, if you can have a consensus by agreement, it's better than having a contested position, so that if you can agree, for instance, in the matter we're discussing of selecting a president, it is highly likely that if the Prime Minister and leader of the opposition agree, they would have consulted with their members, and so it would go through smoothly. The problem is when there's a disagreement, either within the ranks of a party or across the floor, then in that case, if you can't get a consensus result, then you have to find a solution.
Siobhan Campbell for Nationwide News.
You're listening to the news on Nationwide at 5. More after these.
Value Drug Pharmacy offers curbside pickup and delivery of your branded and generic drugs. WhatsApp your prescription to 876-881-6695. The time by Value Drug Pharmacy is
15 minutes after 5.
Rentokil Initial offers air purification solutions with triple filtration and unique auto-sensing capabilities that neutralizes malodor and replaces it with clean air. Call Rentokil Initial at 926-4236 for more details.
The temperature by Rentokil is
31 degrees Celsius in Kingston, 30 out west in Montego Bay.
Scientific Research Council, making science and technology work for you. With research and development,
SRC reinforcing Jamaica with added strength.
From the fields to the labs, we gather and review information.
Detailed research as a foundation,
combined with tech and innovation, working for you
to fulfill the
plan to develop and help uplift we nation. And that's the mission. The Scientific Research Council, making science and technology work for you.
For more information, call the SRC at 876-927-1771.
Continuing the news, the Holness administration will issue 2,500 water tanks to farmers over the next 12 months in an effort to combat the effects of the ongoing drought. Agriculture Minister Floyd Green made the announcement in his contribution to the 2024 sectoral debate earlier this week. The minister says the government is moving to put in place the necessary measures to capitalize on rainfall when it does come.
We continue to focus on drought mitigation. And last year we spent over $175 million in relation to the drought. This year we are continuing that work. We plan to continue to establish retention ponds in highly productive zones to ensure that when the rain does come, we're making the most of it. Additionally, Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to announce today that we will be starting a new black tank irrigation program, where we will be distributing 2,500 irrigation kits over the next year.
Farmers across the island have been hard hit by the drought. President of the Jamaica Agricultural Society, JAS, Lenworth Fulton, has warned consumers that the lingering drought will result in price increases, particularly for vegetables. Minister Green says the government is moving to ensure the island's farmers are better able to withstand the effects of the drought.
What we have found, Madam Speaker, is that our farmers who have the storage capacity and the drip hoses, they do better. They're better able to withstand the drought. And clearly, we will be using a mixed modality to distribute these tanks and irrigation kits, including elected representatives, RADA, JACRA, and various farmer-based organizations.
Floyd Green, Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness has expressed sadness at the passing of CEO of the Universal Service Fund, USF, Dr. Daniel Dawes. Dr. Dawes was reportedly found unresponsive at his home in St. Andrew today. In a statement on social media, Prime Minister Holness described Dr. Dawes as a visionary who devoted himself to bridging the digital divide. The Prime Minister says Dr. Dawes strived to ensure every Jamaican had access to technology. Mr. Holness says Dawes was an exceptional leader who advanced communities and empowered countless lives. Holness has extended his condolences to the family, friends and colleagues of Dr. Dawes. Dawes was appointed CEO of the USF in January 2019. He previously served in the Ministries of Transport and Health.
Former Jamaica Defense Force physiotherapist Lieutenant Coyote Burnett, who stabbed his wife to death in December 2018, has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. The sentence was handed down by Justice Dale Palmer in the Supreme Court on Friday. Burnett, who was initially charged with murder, pleaded guilty to manslaughter based on diminished responsibility at the start of his trial in February. Nordraka Williams Burnett was murdered on December 13, 2018, at the couple's matrimonial home in Kirkland Heights, St. Andrew. She was stabbed 15 times. Mrs. Williams Burnett was an attorney at law. Medical psychiatry reports show that Burnett was diagnosed with a mental illness as far back as 2008. His condition deteriorated, and he was further diagnosed with major depressive disorder with anxious distress in January 2018. When he was detained, Burnett told investigators that voices told him to attack his wife. Burnett and his wife shared 2 children. Both children were reportedly at home when their mother was killed. They were not harmed.
World in a Minute is brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose assembly and supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology and integrity.
The World in a Minute.
An American man who was charged in the Turks and Caicos Islands for illegally carrying ammunition flew back to the United States on Friday. Brian Hadrich left the TCI after receiving a suspended sentence. Hadrich, who is from Somerset County in Pennsylvania, is among 5 Americans hit with similar ammunition-related criminal charges in TCI while on vacation in the country. He was sentenced to 1 year, suspended, and fined $6,700. He paid the fine. His attorney, Oliver Smith, says if Hadrich doesn't get in trouble over the coming year, he'll not have to serve his sentence.
The further afield now, the United Nations Security Council has approved a resolution that strongly condemns attacks on humanitarian workers and UN personnel. The resolution, approved on Friday, also demands that all combatants protect them in accordance with international law. The vote was 14-0, with Russia abstaining. The Swiss-sponsored resolution expresses grave concern at the growing number of attacks and threats against UN and humanitarian personnel, along with the continuing disregard and violations of international humanitarian law by combatants. The resolution does not single out any conflict, but it was being voted on as battle rage in Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan, and many other hotspots around the world.
World in a Minute was brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose assembly and supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology and integrity.
Recapping the top stories making nationwide news at this hour, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has accused opposition leader Mark Golding of jeopardizing Jamaica's move to become a republic.
At this point, and clearly in the minds of many people who have experienced and studied this issue, would have put the progress towards the Republican status in jeopardy.
And MP Robert Miller says the opposition leader should step down in light of his British citizenship and stop obstructing the constitutional reform process.
Dr. Lloyd Barnett says a secret ballot to elect the president of a future Jamaican republic would not be in violation of the country's democratic principles.
PNPYO says claims it was consulted during the constitutional reform process are misleading.
I'm Ricardo Brooks.
And I'm Robian Williams.
You can find the news on our website at nationwideradiojm.com and on the Nationwide app, available on the Google Play and the App Store. News next, the headlines at 6.
News at 5 was brought to you by Fosrich Company Limited, fostering rich customer service.
Plan your tomorrow today. Introducing JMMB's Hello Future Retirement Planning website. Figure out how much you'll need to be set for life with our calculated tools and tips at your fingertips. Visit hellofuture.jmmb.com and start your journey to your dream retirement today. Conditions apply.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Sports here on Nationwide 90 FM. I'm Wayne Walker. The West Indies will look to take an unassailable 2-0 lead in their 3-match T20 International Series against South Africa when they meet in the second game at Sabina Park tomorrow starting at 2 p.m. The Windies won the opening game by 28 runs on Thursday, and victory tomorrow would give them a massive confidence booster going into next week's start of the ICC T20 World Cup. Standing captain Brandon King led the victory charge on Thursday with a man-of-the-match knock of 79, and he says despite winning the opening game, they're still looking to improve come tomorrow.
I think just consistency and improving on the little 1%ers. You know, I think most of the bowlers bowl really well in the situations they were given the ball. Maybe in the batting, you know, as you say, we could have had another person, you know, score some carry it deep and score some runs in the back end. But those small things we're looking to improve.
Former captain Jason Holder sat out the opening game with an injury and should be available for selection come tomorrow. South African captain Reza Hendricks was also the leading man for his team with a well-played 87, but he believes there's much more to the Proteas than just him.
In this series, we came out here to play our best cricket and potentially win the series. So it's no warm-up in any way. So yeah, we'll obviously take confidence, whatever we've learned from this, and then move forward to the World Cup. But for now, we're here in this 3-match series, and as mentioned, hopefully we can come out and win a couple games, if not win the last 2.
Reza Hendricks, captain of South Africa. Two-time World Championship silver medalist Shanika Ricketts will be seeking to improve on her season best when she competes in the women's triple jump at the Prefontaine Classic in Eugene, Oregon, the 5th stop on the Diamond League circuit tomorrow. She'll be joined by compatriot Kimberly Williams. Ricketts opened her season with 14 meters 50 to win at the Jamaica Athletics Invitational. She followed that up with a 14 meters 36 to finish second at the Los Angeles Grand Prix last weekend, and she says she hopes to jump over 15 meters in Eugene tomorrow.
This year, I'm definitely hoping to be more consistent over the 15-meter barrier. Last year, I was able to jump 15 3 times. This year, I'm just working on being more consistent. And I think a lot of that has to do with being patient throughout the jump phases, and also not just the phases, but also throughout the season, making sure that everything that needs to be done is being corrected in training so that it can show during the competitions. And basically, I opened my season in Jamaica this year, and I was in LA last weekend, so I'm just hoping to get a season best at this meet and build going up into the Paris Olympic Games.
Shanika Ricketts, meanwhile, double Olympic champion Elaine Thompson-Herah is on the list to open her season. Thompson-Herah is down to line up in the 100 meters against the world champion Sha'Carri Richardson, the 2019 World Championship bronze medalist Marie-Josée Tallou from the Ivory Coast, and the world 60-meter champion Julian Alfred of St. Lucia. 2019 200 meters world champ Dina Asher-Smith and Brittany Brown of the USA will bring additional competition to the field. In the men's event, Jamaica will be represented by Akeem Blake and Sondre Davidson. Other Jamaicans down to compete include the trio of Rashawn Clark, Jaheel Hyde and Malik James King in the men's 400 meters hurdles. The world champion Daniel Williams in the 100 meters hurdles, and Olympic champion Hansa Parchment will run in the 110 meter high hurdles. The Toya Gould Toppin will go out in the women's 800. Adele Tracy is down for the 1500, and with Ginger Campbell, the record holder in the men's shot put. The curtains came down on the 2024 ISA Devon Biscuits Primary Schools Athletics National Championship, with Central champions Nagohead being crowned winners with 196 points. Sports Minister Olivia Granger described the championship as a huge success. However, she believes more emphasis must be paid to the mental health of the athletes.
These children are so passionate. When they run, it's like their heart and soul they put into it. When they don't win, they become emotional, to the point where I'm saying part of the grooming is to prepare them psychologically. Because in a competition, the same way you go out there to win, you can lose. So you must be prepared. And you just lift yourself back up and go for it. We have had an occasion where an athlete did not make it to the competition, although the school and everybody was prepared for it. And she was watching television and she saw the competition taking place. And she said, you see, that girl running, that could have been me. And she became very hysterical and tried to hurt herself.
Grain says it was disheartening to see some of the athletes running barefooted. She's calling on more local and international corporate entities to support Jamaica's track and field at the grassroots level.
I want the Pumas and the Adidas come on board, come early, because we are looking at athletes. We are looking at the future Usain Bolt. We're looking at the future Shelley and Fraser Price. And they're going to want to sign them for endorsement. I want them to be a part of the blood, sweat and tears from the beginning. And I'm making that a special appeal. I want to thank Devon Biscuit for coming on board. Yes. But I need more sponsors. I need sponsors who will spend the money to make sure that we build the talent, make them comfortable, secure their health. Can you imagine if we get that kind of support? If we have done so well Without that kind of support, you can imagine if we get that support.
That's Olivia Grange, Sports Minister. And it's now time for the Nationwide Olympic Fact. It's sponsored by Fontana Pharmacy.
This is Nationwide's Olympic Facts. Brought to you by Fontana Pharmacy. It's all good inside.
Did you know that until 1912, first place Olympic medals were made of solid gold? Yes, that's a fact. Possibly one of our favorite facts about the Olympics. Sadly though, it's no longer the case. Recent games have given out around 5,000 bronze, silver and gold medals in total. That's a lot of metal. So instead of being created from solid gold, the heavy first place medals are now covered in 6 grams of the precious metal.
That was Nationwide's Olympic Facts. Brought to you by Fontana Pharmacy. It's all good inside.
And another piece of Olympic fact is that Nationwide 90 FM will be the only radio station in Jamaica carrying the Olympic Games this summer, July 26th to August 11th. Stick and stay, yeah? We're going to be back with more sports at 6:05.
Hyundai, the home of modern, premium, affordable vehicles. Call us at 876-630-1511. The time by Hyundai is
5:30.
You know, so through the new social housing program, the government has already given houses to hundreds of poor Jamaicans and will give over 1,500 more houses to Jamaicans in need. We are building Jamaica.
The temperature by the office of the Prime Minister is
31 degrees Celsius here in the nation's capital, Kingston. It's 30 out in the western city, Montego Bay.
Bag it and pin it, every rubbish in a pan. No dirty up the place, this a we island. So keep Jamaica, keep Jamaica. Say make we do it, keep Jamaica clean. Beg you listen to me please. No plastic bag, no fear blowing at the breeze. No proper garbage, disposal, recycle plastic. Now make it full up in the streets. Bag it and pin it, every rubbish in a pan. No dirty up the place, this a we island. So keep Jamaica, keep Jamaica. Say make we do it. A message from the National Solid Waste Management Authority.
Your voice matters, and it's making a difference. In January 2023, you are invited to share valuable feedback on the draft regulations for our National Identification System, NIDS. Thanks to your input, these regulations have been enhanced and are now being tabled for Parliament's consideration. Follow the debates and get the latest updates on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Together, we're building a brighter, more secure future for Jamaica.
Experience Jamaica's Olympic triumphs in Jamaica Gold, a golden spotlight.
Brought to you by Horton's Pharmacy. Horton's RX Pack for better medication management.
4 years after Arthur Wint won the men's 400 meters at the 1948 Olympics, George Roden won the event to ensure the title remained with Jamaica. Roden competed in the 1948 Summer Olympics but did not win a medal, being eliminated in the heats of the 100 meters and the semi-final of the 400 meters. He was also a member of the heavily favored Jamaican 4x400 meters relay team, but when Wint pulled a muscle in the final, their chances of a medal were gone. After a disappointing showing at the 1948 Summer Games, Roden was successful at the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki. As world record holder, he was one of the pre-race favorites in the 400 meters, which he won in a close battle with his compatriot Herb McKinley. McKinley says the photo finish judge awarded the race to the right man.
Again, there was a photo finish, and I lost the judgment. But there was no doubt that Roden had actually beat me in this, although both of us at the same time.
You just experienced a Jamaican Olympic triumph in Jamaica Gold, a golden spotlight.
Brought to you by Horton's Pharmacy. Horton's RX Pack for better medication management.
Not a mercy. This one is very classic, dedicated to all the schoolers who are taking them.
If you've ever struggled to pass an exam, then you'll know that students today are under great pressure to get good grades and secure qualification needed to move on to higher education. The problem is that too many students are struggling alone and could really benefit from connecting with hardworking teachers and other bright students in other parts of the country and the region. Join me, Dennis Brooks, this and every Friday evening from 8 to 9, with a repeat on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. For the A-Team, a study group on radio, my team of teachers, students, and experts will break down the syllabus, giving you information, tips, and past paper questions that will help you get top grades in your upcoming exams. Follow us on Facebook Live and on Twitter and be a part of the community. It's the A-Team, Fridays at 8 p.m. with a repeat at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's your free extra class on radio and social media. And it's right here on Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
Good afternoon. It's 5:35. This Friday edition of The Cover Story. I'm Siobhan Campbell.
Good afternoon, listeners. Good afternoon, Siobhan Campbell. I'm Ricardo Brooks.
How are you doing, Ricardo?
I am amazing. It's Friday.
Getting ready for the weekend?
Yes.
Well, before we get to the weekend, we still have quite a few matters to cover, and we'll start with constitutional reform. Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Malahoo Ford, says the proposal to allow parliamentarians to vote by secret ballot for the appointment and removal of a Jamaican president from office is to avoid the process falling into disrepute. The proposal is contained in the ministry paper tabled in Parliament and based on a report from the Constitutional Reform Committee, CRC.
We felt as that because the office is what it is and what we hope it to be, the result of the vote and a decision being taken would be the best result, because we don't want in the process to bring it into disrepute. If you put your representatives in Parliament and they are making a decision, they make the decision.
That's Marlene Malahoo Ford, Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. She was speaking on Nationwide this morning. The CRC recommends that the Jamaican president be appointed by a two-stage process, starting with a nomination by the Prime Minister after consultation with the Leader of the Opposition. This is then followed by at least a two-thirds vote in a joint sitting of the Parliament, with MPs and senators voting separately by secret ballot.
Where consensus cannot be reached on the nomination by the Prime Minister and the opposition leader, both leaders nominate their preferred candidate, who must then be endorsed by a simple majority of both Houses of Parliament, voting separately, again, by secret ballot. Well, joining us to discuss further are a member of the Constitutional Reform Committee, Dr. Nadine Spence, and Executive Director for Jamaicans for Justice, Mikel Jackson. Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nadine, Ricardo.
Good afternoon, Mikel. Good afternoon.
All right. Mikel Jackson, let me start with you, because I was having a conversation with you briefly before we came on here, and I expressed to you that I was a little bit unsettled in my own mind about this matter of secret ballot, in such an important vote, to have it being done in secret. And you expressed a view, which, I understand, and I've heard my colleague here, George Davis, also express a similar view. But walk us through JFJ's position on why you accept that this may be a valid method of electing the president.
So, just to put in context and what JFJ had proposed, it was quite similar. But for us, we had asked for a special electoral college that would have included not only the members of both Houses of Parliament, but also local government representatives, which would have been the 228 councillors that we had, to ensure that there is a balancing, if you will, rather, because you're looking at the old issue of who controls the House, so to speak. And there is a possibility that you may control the House by parliamentary design, but it doesn't mean that you have the majority with the councillors. So we believe that to have been a good balance. And to further balance it out, we also had a lot of conversation about whether or not we would want a secret or open ballot. And I want the listeners to acknowledge the benefit of both. Before I get into JFJ's position, which is in alignment with the secret ballot, one can consider that if you have an open ballot, it means that you have a sense of what your representatives are voting for,
Right.
why they may be voting in a particular way. It also lends to transparency, and perhaps one could argue that it also adds to the legitimacy of the non-executive president. So those arguments actually are quite valuable arguments to make. JFJ looked at it from the other side, and as I said, it was an active debate that we were having. Whether or not in a context where you do have a powerful prime minister that holds the key, for example, to who is assigned ministerial portfolios and whether or not you want to advance in those ways. And by the way, I'm just making criticism or critique of the parliamentary system, not necessarily the current prime minister.
And certainly
So when
your
you look
practice
at the
broadly in
powers
this
of-
region.
In the region,
Yes.
right? So when you look at these, political realities, when you look at a political culture that has been divisive in certain ways, then one can argue that perhaps if you have a secret ballot, people may be more inclined to vote on conscience and may be inclined to depart from the position of the political parties if they believe it is in their own best, based on their principled position or in the best interest of the country, their constituents that they are ultimately obligated to. So there is that perspective why we said a secret ballot may be best so that people are not as inclined to walk the party line, so to speak.
But Mikhail, and I'm sure you have contemplated this, when people come to the simple conclusion that these MPs do not, and even if you want to extend this to the councillors at the local government level, they do not sit in their positions to represent themselves. They sit there to represent the members of their constituencies and the members of their divisions. So wouldn't it be fair to those members, the Jamaican people I should say, to have the right to know in what direction their representatives have cast their vote?
Absolutely. It's an argument that one could certainly put forward, and I get it. But we have to be weighing the risk and all of the areas that I just mentioned. You want to be transparent to those who put you to represent on their behalf. But on the other side of it, do you want a situation where the reality is, given our political culture, people are just going to be more inclined to vote along party lines? I think we have to consider both sides with what is happening in front of us.
And Dr. Spence, take us into the deliberations, if you could, of the CRC. What ultimately allowed the members to come down on the side of the secret ballot?
Because we felt that, and let me take you further beyond that. So we began the deliberations by looking at the idea of an electoral college or a method of selection of the president. And that meant that we looked at what was practiced in the Caribbean, what is practiced in Commonwealth jurisdictions, what is practiced in jurisdictions where people use a parliamentary democratic system. And yes, we also examined naming an electoral college or saying that this electoral college would consist of these people. In a way, without calling it an electoral college, we have named an electoral college, that specifies how the president should be selected and by what means this president would be selected, right? We don't call it an electoral college. But what we have said, what we argued about and talked about at length was whether or not it should be done in the open and done in secret. So the idea of the vote is that we want all our parliamentarians, those from the House of Representatives and those from the Senate to sit together. This would be the only time the Constitution requires that both houses sit together. So we wanted it to be seen as a special occasion and an occasion that calls on the nation, unity, and all of those, high ideals of nationalism. We wanted it to reflect that. And we did discuss, and at first we had that it would be open. It would be an open vote. But then when we went further into it, we thought of our political culture and we thought of the way our political institutions in terms of our political parties tend to behave in respect of voting. And what we were discussing is how there is this tendency, if the vote is known, for people to vote along party lines rather than vote on their own conscience, and also, Ricardo, vote in a particular way, even if their particular constituents wanted them to vote that way.
But if you come to consensus in the first instance, and I know in the second instance, if there's no consensus, you have two nominees. But if you come to consensus on the first nominee in the first instance, I would imagine that the political parties agree. So why did the committee still think there was a need for it to be secret?
Because remember, the consensus now is between leader of opposition and the prime minister. There is no saying that there might not be one or two people there who might have disagreed with that. You know, and we did just want it to be merely a symbolic vote. We wanted it to move beyond, because it can be a confirmation vote, you know, but it could also be a vote where people within a particular party say, you know, we have some kind of issue with who was nominated by our leader, who was confirmed by our leader. In any case, when we discussed, we felt that, yes, the idea of an open vote would have its benefits, and that, you know, there would be some people who would prefer an open vote. But when we discussed it, we came up with the idea of a secret ballot, because we felt that it was more important for people to vote on their conscience.
We're up on a break, ladies. But before you get in there, Michael, we're up on a break. We'll take you right after this.
Clearing personal non-commercial shipments at the port? Avoid the wait. Request a contactless clearance through your agent today. It's more efficient. It's secure. The time by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
5:46.
Do you owe the NWC? Don't worry. The NWC's Pay and Save program can help you. Yes, you can get a 10 to 20% discount off when you pay balances that are 90 days or older. And if you can't pay everything in full, you can enter into a payment arrangement. Take advantage of this great opportunity by visiting any NWC commercial office island-wide. For more information about the NWC's Pay and Save program, visit nwcjamaica.com or call 888-NWC. Conditions apply.
Invest in Jamaica and make your money grow. Invest in Mayberry Jamaican Equities Bond, a safe and purposeful way to invest. How? We carefully invest your funds in top local companies, empowering you to profit from multiple businesses, not just one. With a minimum investment of just $20,000 and an interest rate of up to 10.5% per annum, it's more than just growth. It's profit with purpose. Discover more at www.profitwithpurposeja.com or contact your investment advisor for full details. Profit with purpose. Invest with Mayberry.
Your voice matters, and it's making a difference. In January 2023, you are invited to share valuable feedback on the draft regulations for our National Identification System, NIDS. Thanks to your input, these regulations have been enhanced and are now being tabled for Parliament's consideration. Follow the debates and get the latest updates on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Together, we're building a brighter, more secure future for Jamaica.
Welcome back, listeners. We're still touching on this topic of constitutional reform, specifically the matter of the election of the potential future president, where, as it would stand based on the recommendations of the CRC, that would be done either with consensus of the leader of opposition and the prime minister by a 2/3 vote in both houses, taken two separate votes, one in both houses but taken separately, or in the case of where there is no consensus, the leader of the opposition will elect a nominee and the prime minister will elect a nominee, and a vote requiring just a simple majority also taken separately by secret ballot in both houses, would decide that deadlock. We have discussing the topic with us Constitutional Reform Committee member Dr. Nadine Spence and Executive Director for Jamaicans for Justice, Mikel Jackson. So back to you, Mikel. While I appreciate that there are some issues with how our political system is practiced, so to speak, in our modern day, I wonder if we're not essentially entrenching the concerns we have with our process rather than looking to more idealistically fix it. This matter of a secret ballot in order to avoid rancor and to essentially drag the political process into the election of the president. Shouldn't we stick to democratic principles where these things are done openly, as would be the expectation, and as that since these are members who are supposed to sit in the House as individuals and not as representatives of a political party, then they should be allowed to vote their conscience on that basis alone.
But I want to challenge you a little bit, because democratic principles does not automatically mean that it's an open ballot. Because remember now, similarly, and I'm being very careful in how I draw this analogy. When you go as an individual to vote, you do so by secret ballot because you don't want political victimization and intimidation and so on. However, I do appreciate that you're saying that you're speaking on behalf of people. You're essentially voting on their behalf. And therefore, the democratic principle would have to be weighing what is the risk that I will be running if I go open ballot versus secret ballot. The same argument for JFJ applies why we did not agree with a direct election by the people. Because what you want is that the symbol of unity, that's one perspective, but also there are particular reserved powers that the non-executive president would have, and I do have concerns about that separately. But if, for example, a non-executive president were to have a power similarly to what happens in Ireland, where there's a controversial bill being passed, let's use the DPP's extension as an example. It was controversial. This non-executive president, if we had a power similar to Ireland, would say, you know what, I have some questions about this bill. Before I enact it into law, before I sign off on it, let me ask the Supreme Court to review this and to weigh its constitutionality. When you have those type of powers existing in a particular body such as this, what you don't want is that there was a perception that this body was aligned to a particular political party and therefore they are acting in a political party's best interest. So you have to be weighing democratic principles from both sides rather than looking at it in terms of secret ballot means that there's a cloak of secrecy and you're not necessarily speaking on behalf of the public. There are two sides to the coin and we have to weigh the options carefully, I would say.
Dr. Spence, I want to take you to the matter of impeachment. 6.3 in the report, and it says the CRC recommends that there should be no inclusion of an impeachment process in the reformed constitution for the following reasons. And it's the first reason that has stuck out to me. It is dealing with what is essentially a legal matter through a political process, as most impeachable offenses are criminal in nature and properly triable in the courts. Now, my difficulty with that is I can think of a slew of matters that may not necessarily be criminal yes, but may be objectionable. Yes, and there should be some recourse before the 5-year expiration of the term or before the Prime Minister calls an election. I'm going to get to that in a second. Did the committee even consider, for example, recall? Recall as a mechanism of accountability, if not straight out impeachment?
We didn't give much consideration to recall. Remember, one of the things we were looking at were the recommendations of the circa 1995 commission, and it had recommended impeachment. So we examined impeachment and whether or not impeachment would have been appropriate for our political system. And so I remember us speaking to recall, but I'd have to go to the minute to be able to recall exactly what the conversation about it was.
Right.
But I know that we had discussed in detail the matters related to impeachment and whether or not we felt that impeachment was the appropriate mechanism within our system of governance to address the issues that had been mentioned in the report in the 1990s and that the public was calling for. But I agree with you that, having read it, I said to myself, I don't know that we have answered that call sufficiently in respect of what is the appropriate mechanism to answer the call for more accountability for political leaders who might not have who might not have met the standard for criminal prosecution, but who have themselves behaved in a manner that the public finds offensive. So I agree with you, and I remember that recall was mentioned, and I could be wrong, but I can't remember us having a detailed enough examination of it the way we did impeachment.
Yeah. And and if I could ask Mikel, I'm glad to hear you say that, Dr. Spence, because when I read it, I thought to myself, just based on what is presented here in the report, it doesn't appear that the committee, in my estimation, sufficiently applied itself to what the call for impeachment was trying to achieve, which is more accountability. And fine, you say you won't accept impeachment, but there are so many other mechanisms. And again, I'm going back to the matter of recall. Ought that not to be something considered, Mikel?
This matter was discussed in the 1990s, and I think my own disappointment reading the CRC report is that it repeats some of the reasons for impeachment always, being said, let's not put it in because it can be subjected to political manipulation and so on. So too can many other things. I don't think that's a reason enough not to have a fulsome debate on it. So I was a little bit disappointed there because there are some matters, and Dr. Swain said it, that may not meet a particular threshold for criminal prosecution. But one should argue that perhaps for you to be sitting in the House of Parliament, then maybe you ought not to be, and that's the political side of things. But my disappointment was that the recall was not mentioned in the CIC report at all. This is something that people have been calling for. I remember over the years we've made recommendations to look to what Belize has, for example, and say, let's put this in. So I do have disappointment that I didn't get a sense that there was much being done to touch on the accountability issues in the constitutional reform process. Because while I appreciate certain efforts, even with the non-executive president, I do have some concerns that we do not exactly know what those reserved powers are. And I don't think it meets the needs of the reader who is not off fair with the Constitution to say, let's go to what exists for the Governor General, because I'm not sure if we're simply going to be replicating those reserve powers that the Governor General has. No. And some of those reserve powers, with the example I gave you earlier, is also one of those accountability mechanisms. So I think that was my disappointment with the CRC report. Very good work from the committee, but I think much more was needed with the accountability systems generally.
And that's what I want to put to you, Dr. Spence, because as Ricardo rightfully pointed out, recall does not necessarily mean that the MP has done something criminal. There are other matters to consider, such as, for example, and it has happened quite a few times throughout our history, where MP crosses the floor. And a lot of their constituents would be rightfully peeved. They voted for them under a certain banner. Why do they now not have the right to say, wait, Mr. MP, Ms. MP, you can't just walk over there when I did not support you in that move? Can I not then say to that MP, you need to come face me again at the vote to confirm that is where I would like you to sit?
I have no problem with your point. I think it is a very good point that you make, and I think Mikel makes a very good point as well. I think it is for our job now as the Constitutional Reform Committee, having heard the conversations and we have been listening to them, is to go back to the table and assess each of the points that have been raised again, so that we, such as the one related to the right to recall or to raise the reserve powers, as Mikel spoke to, and to see how those ideas can be examined, interrogated, and included. I don't think it is the committee's job to say, no, we are not going to, or no, it couldn't have been if we didn't. I think it's our job to look at the suggestions, look at the ideas, and see, how well they stand up, can they exist in our system? What are the ideas that exist around them that would make them fit into our system or not? I think that's our job, and we've been getting those kinds of feedback. We got some from the leader of the opposition, and we went back to the table. We got some from the cabinet when we met with them on Monday, and we are supposed to go back to the table for that. So the work of the committee is not by any stretch of the imagination done.
Yeah. But isn't it finished in relation to this phase of the constitutional reform?
No, it's not, because remember, one of the things that we say we have to do, it can't be done because it has to go into Parliament for debate and for the two sides of the House to put their to put their perspectives in each of the recommendations we've made. All we've done is made recommendations. And now it is for the public and for the people's representatives to decide what they accept and what they don't accept. Our job was only to make recommendations.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the minister said there'd be a joint select committee. Quickly note, we're almost out of time, the fixed election date. I'm a little bit confused. It says, while recognizing that there are good grounds for the proposal to adopt a fixed election date, the CRC is of the opinion that a precise and inflexible date may be problematic in a small country like Jamaica. And then I'm jumping now to the recommendation. The CRC recommends that in the event there is consensus between the two political parties represented in the Parliament, the life of the Parliament should be fixed at 5 years, with provisions for the actual election date to be set by the Prime Minister on a day within a period not exceeding 3 months. So does this mean fix the life at 5 years, meaning it can't be called before 5 years, and then the Prime Minister has discretion after that 5 years within a 3 month band? Is that
right? That's what it means, Ricardo. In a sense, then it means that you can't call an early election. You can't call an election anytime you wish. But you have a very specific set of rules within which you can call elections.
But the CRC does not contemplate what those specific situations would be?
Because this was not a okay. So one of the things, this is a matter that what we are saying is it requires further conversation with our political leaders, because it's not a matter that met the consensus requirement, right?
Oh.
So when we're meaning that
as in you couldn't come to consensus within the committee on a fixed election date?
No, the matter of a fixed election date is not one that the two political parties have reached consensus on.
Oh. Okay. But you within the committee had come to a consensus on it?
Some of us wanted to. Some of us wanted a fixed election date. I don't know that we discussed it towards consensus, because we were aware of the limitations of our conversation in respect of the consensus that is necessary for us to move a principle to recommendation. Because remember, we were working with those things that had already for which there was already consensus. That was part of the terms of reference. If there was already consensus on the matter, then we would look at whether or not the consensus was still remaining, and if there wasn't any consensus, to see if we could build consensus. So in this case, what we were looking at was
Dr. Spence?
It seems we lost
a way that they could look at it.
Yeah. All right, we lost you there briefly, but we're out of time, 2 minutes after 6. Listeners, we think it's important to keep going through this report with the different voices in society to give you a sense of an understanding of what has been recommended. Again, the report is available on Nationwide's website for you to read for yourself. And of course, we'll continue to go through the recommendations as we move or seek to move this process along to becoming a republic. Dr. Nadine Spence, Michael Jackson, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Up next, the headlines.
Say hello to peace of mind and goodbye to worry with Guardian Life's new Ultimate Provider Plan and secure your medical expenses in the event of critical illness today. Call 888-367-5433 for details.
The time by Guardian Life is
3 minutes after 6.
Upgrade your kitchen and bathroom to the next level with Unique Living. They're the ultimate destination for all your kitchen and bathroom needs, from luxurious shower systems to exquisite faucets, vanities, sinks, toilets, closets, and more. They have it all. Visit shop number 6, 30 Dunrobin Avenue, Kingston 10, or call them at 876-755-3661. Elevate your space with Unique Living, where quality meets expectations.
Nationwide headlines at 6.
Good evening. With the headlines at 6, I'm Mahiri Stewart. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says opposition leader Mark Golding's insistence that Jamaica accede to the appellate jurisdiction of the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, has jeopardized the move to have the country become a republic. He made the comments in Clarendon on Friday. Mr. Holness says Mark Golding's refusal to accept that the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, has a more nuanced position on the CCJ than that taken by the PNP has put the process at risk.
That has, at this point, and clearly in the minds of many people who have experienced and studied this issue, would have put the progress towards the Republican status in jeopardy, because there is a parliamentary hurdle to overcome, which is the need for a 3/4 majority vote in Parliament, meaning both the lower house and in the Senate, we need a supermajority. And then there is the referendum, which it was always the case that for that referendum to be successful, both parties would have to go to the people as one.
The Prime Minister has indicated the JLP is in favor of having a local final appellate court, but would put the matter to the Jamaican people in a referendum. Mr. Holness says despite the present impasse, he does not believe the differences between the two major political parties cannot be overcome. He says he has given instructions that dialogue continue towards reaching consensus. He's seeking to assure Jamaicans that his administration remains committed to seeing the process through to the end.
The politicization which has happened in the past few weeks could, if left by itself, derail the process. So my intervention is not so much to talk about the technical issues as to what is in the report, but to reassure the people of Jamaica, especially those persons who would want to see Jamaica become a republic in their lifetime, that all is not lost, that the government is still going to pursue it and pursue it to its logical conclusion.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has expressed sadness at the passing of CEO of the Universal Service Fund, USF, Dr. Daniel Dawes. Dr. Dawes was reportedly found unresponsive at his home in St. Andrew today. In a statement on social media, Prime Minister Holness described Dr. Dawes as a visionary who devoted himself to bridging the digital divide. The Prime Minister says Dr. Dawes strived to ensure every Jamaican had access to technology. Mr. Holness says Dawes was an exceptional leader who advanced communities and empowered countless lives. Holness has extended his condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of Dr. Dawes. Dr. Dawes was appointed CEO of the USF in January 2019. He previously served in the Ministries of Transport and Health. And Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications, Darrell Vaz, is also expressing profound sadness at the sudden passing of Dr. Dawes. Minister Vaz says he's still in shock at Dr. Dawes' untimely passing. He says Dr. Dawes was not only dedicated to the work of the people, but was a man with a great presence. Mr. Vaz says Dr. Dawes was known for his exceptional contributions to advancing technological innovations and improving connectivity while ensuring an equitable digital environment across the island. The minister has extended his deepest condolences and prayers to Dr. Dawes' family and the staff of the USF as they go through this very devastating time. The Caribbean Examination Council, CXC, is seeking to assure stakeholders of the integrity of its Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Exam, CAPE, Chemistry Unit 2, Paper 2, which was conducted on May 9. This follows concerns that the questions on the exam were focused solely on material from the CAPE Chemistry Unit 1 syllabus. In a release to the media on Friday, the examination body says an investigation was launched into the matter. However, it maintains that the questions were designed for candidates to demonstrate knowledge of material covered by the CAPE Chemistry Unit 2 syllabus. The Council says it stands by their robust quality assurance system aimed at ensuring the efficacy of the administered examinations. Those are the headlines at 6. I'm Mahiri Stewart. Sports is next.
Accelerate your career with the right ally. Mona School of Business and Management. Explore our suite of highly ranked, specialized, globally competitive graduate degrees, including our internationally accredited MBA program. At MSBM, we nurture critical thinkers and innovative leaders, placing our graduates in a league of their own. Join the community of trailblazers making an impact at home and abroad. Apply online today. Global knowledge, regional solutions.
Straight from the rock so it flows. Enjoy life letting go. Feel the breeze, mountain reach, water clean, nature green. Everything's good with Catherine Speed. Rain or sun is shining, Mother Nature's blessings. Nature green. Everything's good with Catherine Speed.
Super Center, everything for your home and more.
And we mean everything, not just houseware and appliances. At Zan Super Center, we have furniture too. Furniture for your living room, dining room, bedroom, kitchen, and more. Low on cash? At Zan Super Center, we have layaway plans. Don't delay. Come in today.
Zan Super Center, we're gonna make you smile. Zan Super Center, it's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
Nationwide 90 FM is at it again. Team Revolution will clear every hurdle and sprint to the finish line as we cover the games of the 33rd Olympiad from Paris, the city of love.
3 meters clear, 5 meters clear, and away he goes. He continues on his way towards another gold medal. 5 gold medals, 5 world records.
Nationwide's coverage is powered by our diamond sponsor, Fosrich, fostering rich customer service across all locations island-wide.
Good evening with your sports report. I am Alwix Raby. We bowl things off with some cricket as the West Indies will look to take an unassailable 2-0 lead in their 3-match T20 International Series against South Africa when they meet in the second game at Savannah Park tomorrow starting at 2 p.m. The Windies won the opening game by 28 runs on Thursday, and victory tomorrow would give them a massive confidence booster going into next week's start of the ICC T20 World Cup. Standing captain Brandon King led the victory charge on Thursday with a man-of-the-match knock of 79, and he says despite winning the opening game, they are still looking to improve come tomorrow.
I think just consistency and improving on the little 1%ers. I think most of the bowlers bowl really well in the situations they were given the ball. Maybe in the batting, as you say, we could have had another person, score some carry it deep and score some runs in the back end. But those small things we're looking to improve.
Former captain Jason Holder sat out of the opening game with an injury and should be available for selection tomorrow. South African captain Reza Hendricks was also the leading man for his team with a well-played 87, but believes there's much more to the Proteas than just him.
In this series, we came out here to play our best cricket and potentially win the series. So it's no warm-up in any way. So yeah, we'll obviously take confidence, whatever we've learned from this, and then move forward to the World Cup. But for now, we're here in this 3-match series, and as mentioned, hopefully we can come out and win a couple games, if not win the last 2.
Reza Hendricks. Cricket West Indies CWI has announced its latest initiative aimed at fostering a deeper appreciation for cricket among the youth of the Caribbean. As part of its corporate social responsibility efforts, CWI has generously provided 2,685 tickets to students and 412 tickets to teachers for the West Indies vs South Africa series at Sabina Park. This initiative also includes tickets for 198 players from underage teams, which includes under 19, under 17, and under 15, ensuring these young athletes have the chance to experience top-tier cricket action. The school's ticketing program, and a central element of this initiative, is designed to immerse young minds in the thrill of cricket, offering them the opportunity to witness international matches and develop a lasting passion for the sport. This program will continue throughout the series, reflecting CWI's ongoing commitment to youth engagement and sport development. Two-time World Championship silver medalist Shanika Ricketts will be seeking to improve on her season's best when she competes in the women's triple jump at the Prefontaine Classic in Eugene, Oregon, the fifth stop on the Diamond League circuit tomorrow. She'll be joined by compatriot Kimberly Williams. Ricketts opened her season with a 14.50 meters to win at the Jamaica Athletics Invitational. She followed that up with a 14.36 meters to finish second at the USATF LA Grand Prix. Ricketts says she hopes to jump over 15 meters in Eugene.
This year I'm definitely hoping to be more consistent over the 15-meter barrier. Last year I was able to jump 15 3 times. This year I'm just working on being more consistent, and I think a lot of that has to do with being patient throughout the jump phases, and also not just the phases but also throughout the season, making sure that everything that needs to be done is being corrected in training so that it can show during the competitions. And basically I opened my season in Jamaica this year, and I was in LA last weekend, so I'm just hoping to get a season best at this meet and build going up into the Paris Olympic Games.
Shanika Ricketts. Meanwhile, double Olympic champion Elaine Thompson-Herah is on the list to open her season. Thompson-Herah is down to line up in the 100 meters against world champion Sha'Carri Richardson, 2019 World Championship silver medalist Marie-Josée Tallou-Smith of the Ivory Coast, and a world indoor 60 meters champion Julian Alfred of St. Lucia. 2019 200 meters gold medalist Diana Asher-Smith and Brittany Brown of the USA will bring additional competition to the field. In the men's race, Jamaica will be represented by Akeem Blake and Shandre Davison. Other Jamaicans down to compete include the trio of Rashawn Clark, Jaheel Hyde and Malik James King in the men's 400 meters hurdles, world champion Danielle Williams in the women's 100 meters hurdles, Olympic champion Halsey Parchment will run in the 110 meters hurdles, Nataya Gould-Toppin will run in the women's 800 meters, Adele Tracy will face the starter in the women's 1500 meters, and Rajindra Campbell in the men's shot put. The curtain came down on the 2024 InSport Devon Biscuit Primary Schools Athletics National Championships, with Central champions Nagahead being crowned winners with 196 points. They walked away with $600,000 to go with the $350,000 they got for winning the Central title. Minister of Sports Oliver Grange described the championships as a huge success. However, she believes more emphasis must be paid to the mental health of the athletes.
These children are so passionate. When they run, it's like their heart and soul they put into it. When they don't win, they become emotional, to the point where I'm saying part of the grooming is to prepare them psychologically, because in a competition, the same way you go out there to win, you can lose. So you must be prepared, and you just lift yourself back up and go for it. We have had an occasion where an athlete did not make it to the competition, although the school and everybody was prepared for it. And she was watching television and she saw the competition taking place. And she said, "You see, that girl running, that could have been me." And she became very hysterical and tried to hurt herself.
Minister Green says it was disheartening to see some of the athletes running without spike. She says she's calling on more local and international corporate entities to support Jamaica's track and field at the grassroots level.
I want the Pumas and the Adidas come on board and come early because we are looking at athletes. We are looking at the future Usain Bolt. We're looking at the future Shelley and Fraser Price. And they're going to want to sign them for endorsement. I want them to be a part of the blood, sweat and tears from the beginning. And I'm making that a special appeal. I want to thank Devon Biscuit for coming on board. But I need more sponsors. I need sponsors who will spend the money to make sure that we build the talent, make them comfortable, secure their health. Can you imagine if we get that kind of support? If we have done so well without that kind of support, you can imagine if we get that support.
Olivia Grange, Minister of Sports, now on to swimming, as the Council of the Aquatic Sports Association of Jamaica, ACJ, ratified a 32-member team to represent the country at the CC Can Swimming Championships in Mexico from June 14 to 29. However, 12 swimmers were forced to decline the invitational for various reasons. Coach Wendy Lee says the budget is the biggest constraint.
The budget is ridiculous. The ticket alone to get there is $1,500 US. And we're now splitting the team because, like I said, it's number one, where it is challenging. So we have a great team of 20 swimmers who have committed, but it is, like I said, the ticket alone is $1,500 US. And it's the time of year, right? A lot of our senior swimmers are also doing CAPE and CSEC. Then they have to make a choice between education and swimming. And you only do your CAPE and your CSEC exams once. And another huge factor is the budget, plain and simple. The budget is just too much.
Lee says she's expecting individual best times and medals from the swimmers.
What we have is the best of the Jamaican swimming, and what we've charged our athletes with is each individual athlete make their own individual contribution to the team so that together, united, we can have a good representation. We anticipate that some of the South American countries are going to come with 120 athletes on the team, and our team is 20 athletes strong. So going in with the intention to win the meet or have a team placing is going to be a challenge. We only have one age group that has a relay team. So it's really about individual performances of each and every one of our swimmers. And most of the swimmers are Carifta gold medalists, national record holders, and have a proven track record of doing really well.
Wendy Lee. Now, Jamaica's gymnasts Alana Walker and Isabel David are currently competing in the all-round finals of the Pan American Championships in Colombia. David finished 12th and Walker 16th out of 67 competitors to be among the top 24 finalists. David was also named as a reserve for the beam and flow routine.
I am so honored that I was able to represent Jamaica to the best of my abilities during the qualifying competition. I feel really great about my competition. I hit 4 out of 4 events, which was my goal. I am so excited to have another opportunity to represent Jamaica to the best of my abilities during the all-around finals competition. I hope to hit 4 out of 4 events again and show off all of the skills that I have worked so hard to get. Being a reserve for 2 events is another great accomplishment that I'm so proud of and am excited to continue to work hard to hopefully make event finals at the next international competition.
Isabel David. Now Walker is excited to be back in action after a 3-year absence.
I'm very proud of how I performed. It was fun to be out there with Izzy and the coaching staff, and very exciting to find out I had made all-around finals. I'm very thankful to Team Jamaica for their continued support and belief in me. I'm ready to get back out there, do my best, and represent Jamaica along with Izzy.
Alana Walker. It's now time for the Nationwide Olympics Facts, sponsored by Rainforest Caribbean.
This is Nationwide's Olympic Facts, brought to you by Rainforest Caribbean. Make delicious moments.
Did you know that in 393 AD, the Olympic Games were cancelled and didn't resume until more than 1,500 years later? Yes, that's a fact. Emperor Theodosius I, a Roman ruler, banned the Greek Olympics due to the religious element of the celebration. He considered the Olympics to be a pagan festival which had no place in his Christian country. So that was the end of the Olympics until 1896, when a man named Baron Pierre de Coubertin started a revival of the Games. He called this new event the Modern Olympics, and it's still going today.
That was Nationwide's Olympic Facts, brought to you by Rainforest Caribbean. Make delicious moments.
Okay, so that was our Olympic Facts, sponsored by Rainforest Caribbean. I'm Alex Ribby, and that's your sports.
For all your scales and food processing equipment, call Advanced Scales and Equipment Limited at 876-968-9612-5. The time by Advanced Scales and Equipment Limited is
6:23.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards, and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer, and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
Building wealth the smart way means you have a clear mission for your money. Specific and measurable means defining the reason for your financial goals. Achievable and realistic means keeping those goals meaningful, yet attainable. Think more retirement, less world's richest. Timely means keeping a time frame in mind so that all efforts remain focused.
Visit barita.com/opportunities for more growth coach insights.
Takes place at the Racers Grand Prix, Saturday, June 1 at the National Stadium. World champion Noah Lyles, British record holder Zarnel Hughes, Africa's fastest man Ferdinand Amanyala, and Jamaica's favorite Oblique Seville battling the 100 meters. World champion Antonio Watson takes on champion Allison. Olympic champion Hansel Parchment graces the track in his pet event. St. Lucian hotshot Julian Alfred goes up against the young Jamaican Joel Alana Reid. Devin Charlton takes on Akira Nugent. Tickets available at racersgrandprix.com, mysticonlinetix.com, and the Jamaica Pegasus starting May 24. Finish line $5,000, regular grandstand $3,000, bleachers $500. Don't miss a great night experiencing Jamaica's track and field, passion, and entertainment.
Public Opinion is brought to you by Cleasing Industrial Supplies Limited, Industrial Automation and Control Solutions.
Good evening, and welcome to Public Opinion. I'm Roby Ann Williams, a special one going to our YouTubers. Thank you so much for tuning in. You know, we like to hear from you, so we ask you to weigh in live in the comments section on today's Public Opinion. It's the TGIF edition of Public Opinion, and you know, we like to keep it simple. We've heard the heavy conversations throughout the week, constitutional reform over and over, you know, and it will continue. It is important, so we acknowledge those conversations, yes. But it's time for the light-hearted part of the evening, and we're putting Public Opinion to you, of course. We're asking, saltfish or red herring?
Red herring, nothing them. Any fish without scale. Because when I think it has scale. It has scale? We stop eat red herring enough. Yeah.
Generally, it is saltfish for me, but if I am snacking, it will be red herring.
Every time, man. Saltfish every time, man. Saltfish every time. Mother always say some house must not out a saltfish. Because the quickest thing that can draw, you come in any time of night. Saltfish, man.
Saltfish, we say straight.
I prefer saltfish, not red herring. I eat red herring, but I prefer saltfish.
Me, I gotta declare my hand from now. Me not eating none of them. Me not like the saltfish. Me not like the... And I'm going to say red herring because that's how we call it. I know it's red herring, but red herring. Me not like saltfish. Me not like red herring. So, may I declare my hand from now. And going through the comments, I see where many people on Facebook prefer saltfish. Daphne McCreath says, get the salt out of both of them and put them together. It's more nicer. Okay. Philip Jackson says, saltfish is so nice. Lord Laro have to put it in a song. Nadine Blair says, I would say saltfish, although they're both imported. But saltfish goes a long way. Aki and saltfish with okra, roast yam and saltfish, bean and saltfish, cabbage and saltfish, macaroni and saltfish. Wow. George Elliott says saltfish, although they're both imported items, saltfish is far more versatile. It can go with ackee fritters, cooked down with tomato. Marvin Reed says red herring. cost more than saltfish now. Okay? You're the one to tell me, Marvin Reed, because me no buy none of them. My house will don't have none of them something there. Merlene Fraser says saltfish all the way. Michael Henry says saltfish the thing for years now. I haven't seen Redderin. Barbara Johnson says none. Both are too salty. Karine Mackenzie says Redderin all the way. Rosalind Buck, saltfish. And she put up our Jamaican flag. Natalie Winter says Redderin. Stacey Ann Reynolds says, yeah, Redderin. And as I said before, Andrea Williams, saltfish. Lynn Wall says saltfish all the way. And I'm seeing a lot of saltfish. I'm seeing Redderin in the mix, but more saltfish on Facebook than the Redderin. Going on over to our X platform, Kevin O'Brien Chang says the Great Sparrow said it best. Saltfish, nothing in the world sweeter than saltfish. I have to go listen to that song, you know. Bugs, you know that song? Saltfish? Sparrow? I forgot to listen to it. Tevin Johnson says saltfish all the way. Saltfish coming from Jay Brown. All right. Marlon Osborne says none. And me and Marlon are swimming at the same boat because me no want none of them something. Me no want no saltfish. Me no want no Redderin. Let me see if I can get to the comments quickly on our Instagram platform before we reach over YouTube. Kay Gordon says both are great, but something about the Redderin with the Aki. Daniela McLaughlin says, I cannot choose. Both are my faves. I am Chantilly. Put all red hot. Redderin to our thing. Redderin with Aki. Coming from 1298. Nicola Clark says, saltfish all the way. I'm seeing a lot of Redderin here on our Instagram platform. Silent Music says saltfish, Redderin bones annoying, small to deal with. And that's why I'm not eating none of them, you know, because of the little bone them. I can't take little fine bone them. I have to take my little time I eat. I can't do them something there. Give me anything else, but I don't want no saltfish, nor I don't want no Redderin. I don't know. I can't do it. But let me get to the comments on our YouTube platform. Booker T says Sparrow was not referring to this. Okay, saltfish from Norway. Okay. Willow Will says saltfish. I just use some in my fritters. I don't know. Even when I'm eating the fritters, I pick them out. And it's weird. And people always look at me like, you know, I'm weird. But I really like the saltfish thing. I don't like the Redderin either. Edney Paul says Redderin. JD says saltfish run up. Oh, you say no run down? Saltfish run up. All right. First time hearing that one. Clash Camp says the Redderin rundown or Aki and Redderin. Let me see. Shin's Law Boss is saying the same thing. That's not the saltfish. Lord Larosa. Okay. Let me see if I get in some more. The YouTubers giving me joke. All right. San says, but these fine bones not choke. Me no know. Me no like. No. San is saying that the bones can swallow. No. Listen, saltfish bones stuck on my throat and it stayed there for about 2-3 days. I had to go to the doctor. And from that time, no saltfish to me thing. That's why me no like the saltfish. Donovan is saying there are boneless saltfish. Me no know, my mind just turned from it. I don't like it. Sandra Morris says saltfish fritters nice. Ricardo Porteous, I like both saltfish and Redderin. Juliet Sanchez says boneless saltfish. Me don't know, man. Mine just changed from it. Let me see if I can get in some more. Eddie Pedro. I know that. Okay, codfish. Okay, all right. You and the sparrow also. All right, let me see if I can get in some more. San says Redderin if it's snacking. Sharon Forbes is also saying saltfish. Yeah. Bert Plus says Redderin. Let me see if I can get in a few more. I'm going to listen to the song, you know. I'm going to listen to the song. Donovan is saying I should try the boneless saltfish. You see, I can say that it's been years since me not eat saltfish for years now. Mildred Hamilton says saltfish is more popular, but traditionally both have been used. Sheldon Brown says saltfish all the way. Let me see if I can get in some more. Petrona Smith says saltfish all the way. Isa Mario says you can do the same thing with both of them. Only the red herring tastes different, like corned pork. It's, what is it, salt? Sharon Forbes says curry, saltfish with gully bean. Curry saltfish. Donovan says all saltfish sweet. I don't know, man. Bev Thompson says red herring nice as a child, but no saltfish, and it's more nutritious. All right, well, there you have it. I mean, I feel as though both saltfish and red herring get some love this evening. Charmin BK says I love both, but prefer the red herring. Yeah. Rosalind Stewart says boneless saltfish don't have the same taste as the one with bone. See, there you have it. I don't know, man. It's whenever I'm doing my ackee, I do it with something else. I do it with Frank's, or I do it with something, but no saltfish, no red herring. Thank you guys so much for participating in Public Opinion this evening. We do hope you have a wonderful weekend, but do stay tuned for the Business Report.
Public Opinion was brought to you by Cleasing Industrial Supplies Limited, Industrial Automation and Control Solutions.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Nationwide's Business Report. I'm Robian Williams. NCB Financial Group Limited, NCBFG, is extending its additional public offer APO by 1 week. NCBFG says the extension is to ensure the broadest participation of investors and also due to requests for additional time by potential investors. The new deadline for the APO is now Monday, June 3, 2024. Another news now, the Urban Development Corporation, UDC, has extended the bid submission deadline to May 8 for the sale of 68 commercial lots within the Raintree Commercial Complex. The UDC says the extension aims to accommodate increased interest in real estate development and also the expansion of urban space in the Kingston metropolitan region. The UDC says the Raintree Commercial Complex, which is located just outside Kingston at Caymanas Estate, Ferrypen, St. Catherine, is a key component of its vision for the area. The primary infrastructure for the 68 commercial lots, it's projected to be completed within 12 to 18 months. And finally, in the currency markets at the close of trading today, it cost 156 Jamaican dollars and 60 cents to buy $1 US, 199 Jamaican dollars and 62 cents to buy 1 British pound, and 115 Jamaican dollars and 7 cents to buy the Canadian dollar. Now that's the Business Report. I'm Robian Williams. Good evening.
Drive the most exciting new vehicles in Jamaica. Schedule your 2024 Ford Ranger pickup or Ford Everest 7-seater SUV test drive now. Call or visit KIG today.
We are the best at what we do. At Hose Assembly and Supply Limited, we supply hose fittings and tools. We guarantee we can't be beaten when price and quality are combined. You brand us the Hose and Tool Boss because we deliver the most effective industrial solutions. Come in and experience the joy of shopping with Hose Assembly and Supply Limited. Call us 876-923-3936 or visit 173 Hagley Park Road, 2 Charlesworth Crescent or Montego Bay Trade Center. Hose Assembly and Supply Limited. More than just hoses. Now open every Sunday.
This outstanding 6'4" athlete credits Jamaica with her first Olympic victory ever.
Jamaica is filled with Olympians.
World record holder McKinley dashes into the lead.
We must never forget the forerunners of Jamaican Olympic greatness.
Coming into the home stretch, it's Wint who challenges the leader.
Win or lose, athletes never forget their Olympic experience.
Melly Notti has devastated another world-class field. And Hemmings is going to do it! Hemmings wins it, she's the champion.
Win or lose, Jamaicans will cheer the loudest at the Olympics so that the world will never forget who we are.
And Usain Bolt is moving away, and Jamaica retain their title, and the world record has been taken apart. Oh, I say!
from July 26 to August 11, tune in only to Nationwide 90 FM for the coverage of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games, because we're here to ensure that you never forget. Nationwide's coverage is powered by our bronze sponsors: National Road Operating and Construction Company Limited, Digicel, Grace Foods, Spirits of Jamaica, Imperial Optical Jamaica, and Rainforest Caribbean.
If it's in the public's interest, it's the nation's business during Nationwide at 5. The nation's business.
Not a mercy. This one is very classic, dedicated to all the schoolers who are taking beats.
If you've ever struggled to pass an exam, then you'll know that students today are under great pressure to get good grades and secure qualification needed to move on to higher education. The problem is that too many students are struggling alone and could really benefit from connecting with hardworking teachers and other bright students in other parts of the country and the region. Join me, Dennis Brooks, this and every Friday evening from 8 to 9, with a repeat on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. For the A-Team, a study group on radio, my team of teachers, students, and experts will break down the syllabus, giving you information, tips, and past paper questions that will help you get top grades in your upcoming exams. Follow us on Facebook Live and on Twitter and be a part of the community. It's the A-Team, Fridays at 8 p.m. with a repeat at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's your free extra class on radio and social media. And it's right here on Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
Chewy flavor with delight. It really, really nice. May I say it twice?
The time by Jamaica Mountain Peak Golden Turmeric Latte is
6:40. Good evening. It's 6:40 and time for the nation's business. I'm Siobhan Campbell, and I'll be joined shortly by Ricardo Brooks when he comes by. But we're going to go right into it, where the Turks and Caicos Islands, TCI, has described as regrettable comments by U.S. Congressman Guy Reschenthaler following a meeting between TCI officials and a U.S. congressional delegation. The meeting concerned the 5 American tourists who've been charged by the police in the TCI for possession of ammunition. In an interview with ABC News, Reschenthaler claimed the prison in Turks and Caicos was flagged by the United Nations for human rights abuses. He further claimed the Turks and Caicos government is targeting American citizens.
What they don't tell you, the Turks and Caicos government, is that they handle these cases differently for non-Americans. So, for example, there was a Brazilian that got caught innocently with rounds in her luggage, and she was allowed to leave, much as the Americans would do, with a fine and being sent back to her home country. So when it comes to non-U.S. citizens, there's a different standard. The Turks and Caicos government is targeting American citizens, putting them in front of their criminal justice system totally inappropriately, and that's the problem here. Additionally, 12-year mandatory minimum is unheard of for what's called a strict liability case. That's when you don't have what's called mens rea, or a guilty mind or evil intent. There was no intent here to break the law. All these Americans admitted that the rounds were accidentally left in their luggage. They weren't selling arms on the streets of Turks and Caicos. They weren't importing thousands of rounds of ammunition. These were clearly mistakes, and to face a 12-year mandatory sentence is inhumane, and that is not congruent with other nations in the Caribbean or the developed world for that matter. So just because the length of sentence is incredibly draconian, and how this law is being applied to Americans vis-a-vis other nationalities shows you that they are targeting American citizens. That's the problem. they're totally dependent on the United States. It's a British protectorate, a British territory, but they're so tied in the United States that they use the U.S. dollar as a form of currency. Tourism is the vast majority of their economy. And from that tourism, the United States represents something like 86% of tourists coming into that country. Americans own 75% of the real estate, or 75% of the homes on the island. They're tied to us. But there's internal political pressures going on the island. There's basically 3 ruling families of Turks and Caicos Islands, and they're all jockeying for position. And the family that most recently came into power, that faction ran on a platform of cracking down on tourists, specifically American. And I can tell you that there's internal political pressure that is forcing them. I'm not justifying this, but it's having the premier and that ruling clique in Turks and Caicos target Americans and show to their constituents that they're going after Americans. And I can tell you, when I was down there for 2 days, there is a sentiment of anti-Americanism on that island. We were talking to the business community leaders. We were talking to the government. They were rolling their eyes at us, crossing their arms at us, making inflammatory statements about Americans. So this is not a government that is favorable to Americans, despite the fact that they're totally dependent on us for their economy. Also, we represent something like 75% of imports into that country. They're totally dependent on us. And to turn around and treat 5 American citizens this way is egregious.
That's U.S. Congressman Guy Reschenthaler. He was speaking with ABC News earlier this week. Well, joining us this evening is King's Counsel Oliver Smith. He's representing the Americans. Good evening, Mr. Smith.
Good evening. Are you hearing me clearly? Because I have some difficulty hearing you guys.
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear us a little better?
Yeah, I can hear you a little better now, yeah.
Okay, so just explain to us the situation on the ground presently in regards to your clients.
Well, I asked for 3 of the Americans, Brian Hagerich, who was sentenced today, Michael Lee Evans, and Ryan Watson. Obviously, Brian was sentenced today. We have a date set for the arguing of my sentence submission for Mr. Michael E. Evans on the 28th, 29th, I believe. And Mr. Watson's case is up for a decision as to whether or not he's going to go forward with a plea or the trial, and that's on the 29th of May. So that's the situation, all 3. Mr. Evans is a 72-year-old individual with some severe medical issues. So as part of his bail application, I was able to fortunately convince the trial court to allow him to return to the United States in Texas. So he's back in Texas. Mr. Watson is still in Turks and Caicos. I'm waiting resolution of this matter.
Okay, and what was the sentence handed out to the first client?
The first client received a sentence of 52 weeks, a suspended custodial sentence. It was suspended for 1 year, which means that if he doesn't get into trouble within that year, the sentence, the need for custodial sentence will go away. And he had a fine of $6,700 imposed and a sentence alternative of a year. He has paid the fine, and I spoke to him maybe about 20 minutes ago. He's in Atlanta en route to Pennsylvania.
Okay, because Mr. Reschenthaler suggested that the sentencing was rather draconian, but it sounds as if your clients would have been left with just a fine in most instances. So what is your reading of the situation in terms of how the Turks and Caicos government has handled this matter in terms of what they consider the illegal possession of ammunition?
Look, maybe I could give you a background.
Please.
There's been a rise in gun crimes in Turks and Caicos Island over the past 3-4 years. And in response to that, the government has increased the sentences for possession of ammunition and possession of firearms. So it went from no mandatory minimum to 5 years mandatory minimum to 7 years mandatory minimum, and in 2002 to a 12 years mandatory minimum. However, the legislation that's crafted has a section that allows the judge to go below the mandatory minimum in the event that they find what is known exceptional circumstances, which is essentially an amorphous category. There's no exact definition of it, but once you can prove to the court that the circumstances in which your client committed a crime are outside the norm, then that trial judge who is hearing the matter can decide to sentence him to less than the mandatory minimum. Well, prior to February of this year, where judges found exceptional circumstances, but for one case involving tourists, they were reviewing the sentence to be a sentence at large, and they were imposing fines. There was one instance of a client of mine by the name of Michael Grimm who received an 8-month sentence. Now, that sentence, because most of these cases were involving tourists with bullets, and because they were being fined, there was an outcry, understandably so, by the residents and the citizens of Turks and Caicos Islands, indicating that, well, there's one law for tourists and one law for locals, and not recognizing the differences, the reasons for that. The government acted on that, and they filed an Attorney General's reference to the Court of Appeal. Now, the Attorney General's reference is an application to the Court of Appeal to say, in which they asked the Court of Appeal to answer certain questions of public interest. And one question they posed to the Court of Appeal was, if in fact exceptional circumstances are found, the way the legislation is drafted, there must still be some sort of custodial sentence. Now, the Court of Appeal, whilst not considering the constitutional issues, because admittedly they were not raised, I was a part of the Court of Appeal hearing, and they ruled that the literal interpretation of the legislation as it currently is would mandate some sort of custodial sentence, even if exceptional circumstances are found. So that happened in February, and Mr. Hagerich's case, which concluded today, was the first case that came before the court, where the court was now faced with the dictates of the Court of Appeal, indicating that even if you find exceptional circumstances, there must be a custodial sentence. So in my submissions to the learned judge, I offered as options that, Judge, if you do find exceptional circumstances, you do have the option to impose a custodial sentence, but you could suspend it. That was one of the options I offered, that I suggested today to the learned judge, and unfortunately she agreed. She found exceptional circumstances. She recognized what the Court of Appeal indicated, that there must be a custodial sentence. She instituted a custodial sentence of 52 weeks, but she suspended it for a year.
Okay. Then proceeding on that basis, though, these statements by Mr. Rishon Taylor suggesting that U.S. citizens are being unfairly targeted using these new legislations opposed to other citizens, I believe he cited...
Nonsense. It's total nonsense. A lot of stuff that he said in that was nonsense. About the fact that U.S. citizens are being targeted, that's nonsense. About the fact that they face a draconian sentence, that's partial nonsense, because yes, they face a draconian sentence, but he failed to indicate that there are avenues where the sentence, which is in fact draconian, where that sentence can be avoided if certain things are established before the court. His reference to the United Nations making negative comments about a prison is another falsehood. 75% of the country or the properties owned by Americans, that's also false. There's a lot of stuff. I'm not sure what his motive was what his motives were for making those statements. I'm not sure, but it really was not necessary. It inflamed the situation, and it did help to place my client at some sort of peril in relation to the potential sentence that he was facing today. It was not helpful at all, and it was laced with inaccuracies.
So that's interesting. Through his own actions, he was actually potentially further endangering the life of one of his own citizens.
Endangering the liberty.
The liberty, correct. Thank you for that correction. The liberty, not the life. You're right.
It was very careless. and I must say that. I understand that he has his interests of his constituents at heart, but it was very careless and loose language. And not only was it careless and loose, it was not factual. And I'm not a politician. I don't know why they do stuff, but we could have done without that.
But isn't this an instance where I think a lot of Americans coming from entirely different culture, because we here in Jamaica have our own issues when it comes to gun crime and the use, and we've had to do our own crackdowns, and just as the Turks and Caicos is reliant on tourism, so are we. And in the United States, it's a completely different culture in terms of the use of firearms and ammunition. Is this just essentially just a sort of cultural differentiation that the gentleman, Mr. Rishan Taylor, does not quite understand or perceive?
I don't think it's cultural. I think it's what the position is in one country as against what the position is in another country. For instance, the United States has a right to bear arms. In some states, you don't require a license to bear arms. And in other jurisdictions like Jamaica, we don't have that situation. America does have its own issues with gun violence, but it's not addressed in the same manner as it's addressed in the Caribbean. I mean, you have mass shootings on a more frequent basis. But it's not so much cultural; it's just what the law is in those particular countries. And the situation with all these tourists is one that it was an act of inadvertence. They didn't realize that they had the ammunition in their luggage. And it's all these people are gun owners, licensed gun owners that come from states where there's no need for a license, or there's a hunting license, or a conceal and carry or carry license, carry permit, and they'll go shooting and forget that the items are in their bag. It's not unique to the Turks and Caicos Islands. It has happened. It has happened a lot of other.
It's happened here in Jamaica, yes.
I mean, a simple Google check, you'll find it happens in the Cayman Islands. In my submissions to the judge, I cited, make reference newspaper articles from the Cayman Islands, from Bahamas, from Bermuda, and even from the Jamaica, where you have tourists visiting the islands who have found usually leaving the island with either a firearm or ammunition. And they're dealt with usually in the manner that I think it should be dealt with, which is usually fine.
And forgive me for putting it this way, but I took a bit of offense on behalf of those people in TCI because of the way the congressman was speaking, almost to suggest as if citing your reliance on the tourism market and their contribution to that tourism market, almost as if they have some power or control or some sort of perceived supremacy over the TCI in terms of his need for action on the part of the government.
Well, there is a heavy reliance on tourism in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I mean, maybe more reliance than in other Caribbean countries. I mean, it's the main income earner in the Turks and Caicos, and I would posit to say that it is for that reason why the congressman would say stuff like that, because you realize that there is most of the foreign income comes from tourism in the island, and I think it triggers the innate arrogance that is obviously part and parcel of the congressman to make those remarks. It was very unbecoming in my view.
And has the Turks and Caicos government responded to the accusations leveled by the congressman in any way, at least to either assure their own citizens and assure the United States that there's no such bias?
Yes, I believe there were statements coming from the governor and Premier Washington Mystic. I think the phrase that Washington Mystic used was coming out of the meeting with the congressional delegation, that what the congressman said was not indicative of what transpired in the meeting. So yes, they have the local politicians and leaders of Turks and Caicos Islands have equally renounced what the congressman said.
Okay. And just another quick question. This matter of ammunition and gun crime in the Turks and Caicos, we have a serious issue of it here in Jamaica. Is that concern or the seriousness of it as mirrored in the TCI?
There's an increase. And a country that's not used to this. It's a country where people still sleep with their doors open and their windows open. So the response by the government with the increase in the sentences for firearms is understandable. You know, it's an understandable reaction because it's not a phenomenon that they're used to in terms of gun crimes.
Okay, I see a YouTuber suggesting that the congressman is just looking out for his citizens, but certainly there is a more diplomatic way to do that rather than throw the livelihood of a country essentially to the wind for what is barely any genuine political gain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, he's a congressman. They come up for election every 2 years. They're always campaigning. Because, you know, every 2 years they have an election. So I'm not sure if that's the rationale. What's significant to note, though, is that the delegation, I think, numbered in the team. And he's the only member of that delegation who has made that comment. And I would take the silence of the other members of the delegation as signifying that they are distancing themselves from those comments.
Then just finally, just to be certain, the sentences handed down to the clients that you represented, did you find them to be out of sorts in terms of their proportionality?
Well, so far it's one client that was sentenced. And in my view, the sentence it's understandable under the circumstances. I wouldn't say it's disproportionate. I can understand and rationalize the judge's reasons for making the sentence that's imposed today, and I don't think it's any way disproportionate, given the offense and given the mandatory minimum and given what his primary exposure was.
Okay. Oliver Smith, attorney at law over in Turks and Caicos. Thank you so much for your time, sir, and I wish you all the best over in the TCI.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Take care.
Have a good evening. Well, your calls are next, listeners. The numbers are 630-9371-4 and 618-8255. Come chat with us.
The mission of the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs includes revising Jamaica's legal and constitutional infrastructure and accelerating the pace of reform. The time by the MLCA is
7:01.
Invest in Jamaica and make your money grow. Invest in Mayberry Jamaican Equities Bond, a safe and purposeful way to invest. How? We carefully invest your funds in top local companies, empowering you to profit from multiple businesses, not just one. With a minimum investment of just $20,000 and an interest rate of up to 10.5% per annum, it's more than just growth. It's profit with purpose. Discover more at www.profitwithpurposeja.com or contact your investment advisor for full details. Profit with purpose. Invest with Mayberry.
Nationwide 90 FM is at it again. Team Revolution will clear every hurdle and sprint to the finish line as we cover the games of the 33rd Olympiad from Paris, the city of love.
3 meters clear, 5 meters clear, and away he goes. He continues on his way towards another gold medal. 5 gold medals, 5 world records.
Nationwide's coverage is powered by our diamond sponsor, Fosrich, fostering rich customer service across all locations island-wide.
It's 2 minutes after 7 this Friday evening. We're taking your calls now. The numbers to call 630-937-124, 618-8255. Cherry. Cherry?
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, darling.
How are
Good
you?
evening to the next.
Siobhan.
Yes, sir. I have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I rent this room in Garden Town.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I rent this room in Garden Town. I'm a pensioner. I'm 71 years old. And I've been having problem. I need some advice. I got 35,000 a month for my pension. I rent this house for 25. Yes.
Do you have the radio on?
Okay, can turn it
Yes,
on.
yes, because it's confusing you. Yes.
I got
Cherry?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And when I first got the house, I noticed I coming in at evening time, is a lot of roach in the yard. Roach. So when I got the room, tear roach. Sometimes as I come to bed, I have to run out and go back in the bedroom. So come and say, on my bed, so I'm scared of roach very hard, very bad.
Mm-hmm.
And when I notice the bathroom pipe, the shower not working, the face basin not working, the one in where you wash plate in the kitchen not working.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take pan and flush the toilet. So I'll be talking to this lady I rent here in July. I'll be talking to her and she's not paying me no mind at all. She don't seem to fix nothing. The shower, the face basin stuck up, lag up, can't move, no water. The face basin said thing. And now, when the big rain fall, where there's spear mold in the house, now I'm sick, I have to go to the doctor Tuesday. I can't hardly breathe.
All right.
I got pain. My stomach wheezing and the lady not doing nothing. I said to call her in there. I said to her, let the man, the mason that's working on your house upstairs, let him come and throw some cement and rub it off for me. I'll buy that thing of white eye paint with a brush and paint it. She not paying me no mind.
Mm-hmm.
No mind. She don't care. She just beat me door every 25th, pay the money, or me filling her alone. Me don't know where me forget it from because right now she borrow when I rent the room in July and get the 25,000. The next morning she said I must lend her 10,000. So I thought she was good. The 1 month me have, you know.
All right.
I thought she going to give back to me in the week or support.
All right, Miss
She
Cherry.
will tell me
Miss Cherry.
about,
Miss Cherry.
sir?
Yeah. Have you tried to find somewhere else?
Yes, I'm trying to pack up. I pay back and pack up me up on the road every day. Every day me up on the street I look something.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Okay.
And that is the advantage you have over me.
All right.
You see?
Are you aware of the rent assessment board?
Yes, I went there today and they don't give me no good argument.
What did they say? What did they say?
I take the bed and join the bed in the living hall.
All right,
in
hold
there
on.
I'm sleeping because the mold
All
is
right.
so much.
Yeah, I understand.
I
But
call
hold
her,
on. But let's see.
show
If
man to look at my phone.
Hold
and
on.
I show
Miss
him
Cherry?
because I did not know what was it.
Miss Cherry.
Yes?
Come, let's try to see if we can find some solutions. What did they tell you at the rent assessment board?
They say because she catch water across next door in our hose and try to give everybody. So they are saying, well, she still provide a little water. Nothing else. They said they give me no good argument.
All right.
And right now I'm sick in my stomach. I'm wheezing. Cough, everlasting.
Okay. All right.
So I'm looking some help, sir. Some help, some advice what to do.
Okay. So, all right, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to hold the line and give our producer your number.
Yes.
And I will try to reach out to the board for you, the rent assessment board, on Monday. Okay?
Please.
Yes, we will. All right, so hold the line.
Yes.
Hold the line for me, Miss Cherry, and our producer will take your number. All right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Chris. Chris? Chris? No, not hearing Chris. Chris? Okay, he's gone. All right, the numbers to call 630-9371 to 4618-8255. Taking your calls. The program nationwide at 5. Yeah, that one threw me off. But I'll see if we can reach out to the rent assessment board, and I know Nora. I'll also bring it to Nora's attention to see what she can do for the consumer.
70-year-old on a pension. What, 75% of that pension goes towards her rent, and the landlady can't even provide her with a decent. Things like that really sets my blood boiling. I don't want to hear of our senior citizens in a situation like that.
Yeah, and I'm not clear if I'm not sure what she said to the rent assessment board, but that I know they usually, before they respond, they usually try to get both sides, is my understanding of how they operate. So we'll just have to clarify whether she was at the right place in terms of where she needed to be. Yeah? The numbers to call 630-9371 to 4618-8255. Taking your calls on Nationwide at 5. The matter of the transparency of the secret ballot in electing the president, are you now satisfied? Because I know you have very strong views about it being an open vote.
I understand where the suggestion comes from, but I am always been someone of principle, and at the end of the day, I don't accord by MPs being provided any avenue to cast their vote secretly.
So that's no, not convinced.
No. I know some people say, well, the average voter is allowed to cast their vote secret, but that's apples and oranges. Because the level of protection from political victimization that, say, the average voter would have versus an MP, and the level of scrutiny one would expect that a political representative would have that is not accorded to a single voter, would explain why certain matters such as this should be open to us in terms of understanding where our MPs stand.
Yeah, all right. Donovan, good evening.
Hey, evening, Ricardo and Siobhan.
Evening.
Just a scenario I want to paint in relation to the objection you have to the secret ballot. The persons who are casting the ballot, how did they get in the position that they are in? I know.
They were voted
in. Elected. Some of them is MP, some of them were appointed through the opposition and through the government, right?
Yes.
If they vote against their constituents' wishes, let's suppose we know, I'm not sure how you would know what the wishes of the constituencies are, who they represent are, but let's say they vote against those wishes. Do we have a mechanism to recall them?
And we both agree that's not the right way to go.
No, we don't. There is no mechanism, which is what
there should be a mechanism to recall
part of the challenge I have.
We're not talking about what should. We're talking about what exists.
No,
but we're talking about constitutional reform. So what isn't could be.
Let me continue. So there's no mechanism to recall them,
right?
So it is highly likely, as the committee deliberated on, that they will be subject to being forced to go to a particular line. It could be the party line, it could be their conscience line, but they'll have to make a decision. Now, in the event that the decision that they want to make, in their judgment, goes against the party decision, what is the safeguard that they have in the event that they vote the way they want to vote?
In terms of their protection against victimization from their own party?
Yes.
They're still members of parliament. They can't be booted by the party from the parliament. At most, they can be booted from the party, but not the parliament.
But they can be booted from the party.
Yes.
Are victimized by the party.
I mean, I think that's an extreme outcome, though. I don't know if you break the whip, they
No,
kick you from the
let me
party.
tell you why it's not an extreme outcome. Because in our parliamentary democracy,
Yes.
you have what is called a parliamentary whip, don't you?
Right. Yes. And I'm saying, I don't know that if you break the whip, it automatically means they kick you out of the party. That
It doesn't automatically mean that. However, you won't be able to get the support of your party, which is substantial to you being able to carry out your constituency functions, because you won't have a organization behind you.
But what you're suggesting then that they'd be victimized not only politically but by the government for taking a certain line, which means they wouldn't have access to their CDF and other measures by which they would assist their constituents?
They would have access to it, but they wouldn't have the mechanism readily available to them. As we have seen in many instances where the MP so audacious as to not toe the party line. Remember.
So you think the abuse of the MP would essentially then justify the need for a secret ballot? So that MP
No. What I'm saying, Siobhan and Ricardo, is that if we put in piecemeal mechanisms, then we can't hide behind. We know what in an ideal situation, an open ballot would have been ideal. But you have to be pragmatic until you have a mechanism in place that will ensure or will provide the other remedies that would be required to support an open ballot. You have to do it otherwise.
But we would agree on that principle because we should put the mechanisms in place along with the principle of an open ballot. This is a constitutional reform process.
Right, but the other things that the vehicle that supports the platform that supports a functional MP cannot all be enshrined in a constitution, right? And the structure of government is such that government and politics is such that some things are based on tradition, based on how we do it. Some things are guided by that infrastructure. Now, until we reform that infrastructure, it could just come in like campaign financing.
So when do we start with that reform?
Pardon me?
When do we start with that reform? Because I mean, I will agree with you that how we practice Westminster. I agree with you that how we practice Westminster here locally is not fit for purpose. An MP is not supposed to be your manna from the heaven where everything and all resources through which flow. I agree with you on that. The principles by which we practice Westminster here simply do not work, and the parliamentarians accept that they do not work. But I wonder who is actually interested in reforming the system rather than shoring it up with secret ballots in order to understand the realities on the ground, etc., etc. Why don't we work toward fixing the system?
But Siobhan, by nature of our orientation and by nature of how we have been institutionalized, we tend to think that secret ballot in and of itself is something bad.
I believe it is something bad in the terms of elected representatives, yes.
No, not necessarily. Because the other point...
I give you a recent example when I came out in this exact same posture when an MP had suggested that they cast a secret ballot on abortion. Now, I simply stated, regardless of my views on abortion or not, that simply was not on something so topical and important. You do not get to go in behind a secret corner and say, I cast my vote one way or the other. People should know where you stand.
For certainty and completeness, I've been having this conversation and thinking it through, and from I first saw it, it first gave me a little bit of pause, but ultimately I came down on the side that I'm okay with it, right? I'm okay with it. And I raised to my colleagues in the newsroom two primary reasons why I'm okay with it. The first reason is the matter of, I didn't go as far as saying victimization, but certainly how the party position may influence an outcome.
I came down on the side that I'm okay with it, right? I'm okay with it.
Turn off the radio.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But I think my primary concern is how the open vote may color the president. What do I mean by that? So if you have a situation where you know the tally, and then you recognize that the president is elected by majority or by overwhelming vote of the PMP side of the parliament versus the JLP side of the parliament, I think, and I raised it in the production meeting, I think that could color how the president is perceived. And so for that reason, I said, you know what, it perhaps is best to have it in private. And here's why I distinguish... No, the radio again. Here's why I distinguish, Siobhan, that vote from the vote of the abortion matter. Because that's a policy issue, right? And not only a policy issue, but a divisive moral issue. So I think I can side with the opposition in that instance, as in against a secret ballot in that instance. But on the matter of the presidency, just so as to elevate it above partisan rancor and elevate it above any perception that the person being voted in is colored or has the overwhelming support of one side.
That is key.
I think I'm okay with it being secret.
For it to go to a secret ballot, although I suppose it would go to a secret ballot either way, but in the instant where you are actually having a dissension on the part of the opposition in terms of who they would like to be the president, the politics has already been introduced.
But I put that point to Michael Jackson, and I thought her response was persuasive, because she said the fact that the leaders agree or have come to a consensus on who the nominee is doesn't necessarily mean that their parties agree. So Dana and I could agree and say, yeah man, Siobhan is the best person, we put you forward in a consensus position. But then Jamal, Cliff, George, Mahiri might say, I'm not really comfortable with that guy.
Exactly like what is happening to Mark Golden now. Where he has a position. Right? And remember, if we're what members of his party don't share that.
Right. So so I've ultimately come to the decision that I'm okay with it being
let's
secret.
Accept that as the premise. And at that point, know that you have objected to the president, Madam President, Mr. President, being selected or appointed. Do you not then require mechanisms to explain, okay, what was the objection? Or do we simply just move on?
The objection from if the opposition objects?
Let's look at them as individual members. As to why the individual members objected.
No.
So we just move on.
We should just move on because if you even bring up the argument of why the objection, it then becomes a purely partisan spectacle, which I think is what they're trying to avoid.
Interesting. So the requirement then would still be for consensus at the front end before we even get to the part of a vote.
Yeah.
So if you have consensus, you don't have a problem.
So why not disappoint the man?
That's Siobhan's preference. Thanks for the call, Donovan. Thanks for the call, Donovan.
Okay, good.
Dallas, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. We hear you, Dallas. Go ahead.
Yeah, the conversation, you just have to take it easy. Yeah. Anyway, can't deal with the politics thing, you know. Listen, you want a black tank.
You want a black tank?
Yeah, man. Because right now, we have an old-time tank building about 1950, you know. And I'm going to soak, you know.
You're a farmer?
Yeah?
You're a farmer?
Yeah, man. And so they want that, you know. And right now, the house, the wall cock up, the old-time house, you know. And they want something come on.
Who's your member of parliament?
You can assist me, you know.
Who's your member of parliament?
The princess, you know.
Who is that?
Manchester on that.
That's Rhoda Moy Crawford?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you reached out to her office?
We don't know her office, yeah.
Oh. All right.
So, she is my program, so we have to speak to him and say,
I know there's an ongoing program to distribute black tanks, so I would imagine you'd meet the criteria to have one.
All right. MP Crawford, if you're listening, one of your constituents seeking some assistance with Black Tank.
Yes.
All right, so let's hope she responds.
And then I say, really come out.
All right, my producer is saying hold the line. All right. Okay. 630-937-124, 618-8255. Carl.
Yeah, evening, Carl.
Evening, Carl. How you doing?
Evening, Shabba. Last week Saturday about 2:30, one big lady called me and said to me, say, she's reading a document here now, and the document is very confusing to her.
Mm-hmm.
And me say, but no documents are supposed to give you any trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she asked me, say, me sit down properly, and me say, yes. And she said, Dana Scott Matley and Mr. Hilton carry Mr. Golden wide. And I say, what you mean? And he said, to what them agree with in the documents, Mr. Golden would be able to can sit inside the parliament, to what them did know. And I say, oh, and they leave it there. We have a group when we in.
Hold on, before you move on, because that assumes that Donald Scott Motley and Anthony Hilton were aware that Mr. Golding was a British citizen.
Thank you very much.
Yes, then and therefore you can't conclude by saying that them carry him wide. You can't conclude that because you don't know whether they knew this.
Listen, here is why me can't say that, Ricardo. Mr. Golding is when Mr. Golding get the documents and read it, what them agree with in the documents.
Yes.
Mr. Golding never see it until he get the documents. You understand what I'm trying to say to you now?
He wasn't seeing what was in the document until he got the document?
He never know what was taking place inside the document until he get it to read.
No, that's not what we've been told. We've been told that he was kept abreast at every stage.
Oh, yeah, we hear that he was kept abreast.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was saying that kept abreast then
Mm-hmm.
then why all the while he never come out and say something?
Well, that's a legitimate question that you can ask. Siobhan has a view that he might have wanted to see all the recommendations in one place before offering public comment.
Okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right, fair enough.
Yes.
We'll leave it there because I won't call the person who call me.
Yes, sir.
You have to leave that. Anyhow, what happened to all of the human? I'll give them a proper name tonight.
Please.
What happened to all of the human rights from last week for except John Clark and the one deacon where people care if just them picnic is our church now.
Carl, hold on. Because I've been seeing the calls about where are the human rights groups. What is the human rights issue that is implicated by Mr. Golding's dual citizenship?
Hold on, Ricardo. You're there on long enough now. And some of it there on long enough. If that whatever happened to Mr. Golding tonight did that happen to anybody over the Jamaica Labour Party, you know that every one of the good human rights will be out there telling them to resign. And can't tolerate him. Do you hear any of them come out, all the good old 70s? You hear anything from him all now yet?
All right, let me ask you this. Could it be that they are saying that under the current constitution, Mr. Golding is on firm legal ground and therefore there is nothing for them to comment on?
Well, I don't have no problem with the law, but where is the moral?
Right. No, so remember, that moral argument, sure, you can take that argument, but I'm saying, what if they've come to the conclusion that there's nothing to discuss because there's no legal impediment, there's no legal...
no right is being threatened.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Put it on next way then, Ricardo.
Yes.
You want to tell me say none of them were at the human rights then? Don't see something wrong with if your head of state should have two passports and he must show you the Jamaica one and the British one, right?
Go ahead, I'm listening.
Okay. And as I continue to think about this thing daily and everything, not kill me at work, me continue to think about it careful. Is if a disease should have break out in Jamaica and Mr. Golding should be a prime minister, Mr. Golding say, yeah. The country away, one different country, even the one we have a passport for, alright. So me a go there to go stay until if he not come back alive. Nobody couldn't stop him now. Or if there is a war in Jamaica and he not feel to stay here, he can hold up his passport in his hand and say, I'm not a citizen. I'm not a Jamaica citizen. You know, move in front of me, will plane out the airport and wait for me.
And that is why.
And if they go anywhere and block it, he can call up at the British Embassy and they have to carry him going
and that is why
and well secure him to go leave the country.
And that is why I have said he should renounce the British citizenship. I think that would be appropriate and proper to do. However, I understand and accept that other people have come to a different conclusion because they have a different standard. Meaning they think that the ultimate test of whether his actions are correct is the legality. I happen to have a different perspective, and as I've said, I think he should renounce it. I think that is the appropriate thing to do.
I take a different decision, different ways from my Prime Minister also Monday.
Yes.
The minute you say you want to be a member of Parliament, whether you come from whether America or
you and I are of one mind on that. I don't believe any dual citizens should sit in Parliament.
Citizenship of any country before you can sit inside my Parliament to make law.
Agreed.
The next problem we may have also, Mr. Golding did not get a Jamaica passport until he is 46. For 4 years, Mr. Golding was inside the Senate making laws.
Again, Carl, with no legal impediment. There was no legal impediment. But I hear you. But at least we can end this call on an agreement because we agree that there should be no dual citizens in Parliament. None. We agree on that. We agree on that.
None.
All right,
and
Carl.
I move away from my Prime Minister concerning that. I don't know how my Prime Minister go down that part of the journey. No way. If you decide to come running in my country, give up that. Me just say, if all the way of stand here and you want cocoa, make all the way beat the cocoa. When the cocoa is not enough, you take up yourself and say, I run go eat lobster.
Yeah. All right, Carl.
Faithful.
Yeah. Good evening, Siobhan. Good evening, Mr. Brooks.
Good evening.
It has been said that for to remove the head of state, both the opposition and the opposition and the government have in agreement is kind of going further. Upon which Miss Matley, Dana Scott Matley, and Mr. Elton doesn't sign. Also doesn't sign is Usman. Suppose Mr. Scott Matley and Mr. Elton sign and Usman don't sign. Can that prevent from go through?
Go again.
The premise that they laid down that the opposition have to agree with the government to move the head of state, and based on which the opposition gave order for them not to sign Dana Scott Matley and Anthony Hilton. But I hear Mr. Usman say he doesn't represent the opposition, and he doesn't sign also. If Dana Scott Matley sign and Anthony Hilton sign and Mr. Usman doesn't sign, can they remove the head of state? Everybody have to sign.
I think in this instant case, they're referring to the power of the opposition in terms of the PNP to make a vote on the matter as would be required quite contentious and essentially fail. So I don't know if Mr. Hugh has that kind of pull at the political level in terms of the ability to convince a large swathe of the country.
I'm not talking convince, no. They have just signed to agree. But I know that is great problematic. If Dana Scott Matley and Anthony don't sign, because they represent the opposition. but Mr. Smart said he does represent the opposition, and he does not sign. I want to know if he carries the same weight.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Simple answer, no, it doesn't.
He doesn't. That's what I want to know. That's part one. I want to know, what is the difference, you see, with when Mr. Golden was giving his budget presentation, and he was make reference to the Speaker of the House, and the moral, say legally, it doesn't wrong. She doesn't do anything legally wrong. If being the Speaker, but morally it doesn't look good for she to be the Speaker of the House and the Prime Minister's wife. It doesn't look good. And I hear a ton load of journalists say was agreeing with Mr. Golden. Say morally it doesn't right. Is there a difference between that and what Mr. Golden did now with being a citizen? Morally?
I think that's a legitimate question.
Very much so.
Can I get a legitimate answer?
But you know my position already. I think he should renounce the citizenship.
Speaking about your position.
No, but I can't forget about my position. My position, he should renounce the citizenship. I don't think it's appropriate.
To be clear, Mrs. Holness sits in her position on two merits. She faced the electorate. She won a contest, which gained her access to the Houses of Parliament. And on that basis, she also faced her peers, including the opposition, who agreed to place her in the Speaker's chair and give her the gavel.
Which is why, Faithful, I'm agreeing with you that the question you are raising is a legitimate one.
Right. Mr. Golden say what she did.
So we're talking about moral authority. Mrs. Holness has quite the moral authority to sit where she sits.
No, what he's saying is that I think he's saying there's a dissonance between the position Mr. Golding took in that
but
instance.
we agree that there's a dissonance there.
We don't disagree with you.
Right. But I heard on many different platforms. I'm not talking internet, I'm talking radios. Many other different platforms. They are willing.
But you can't come here and ask us to account for what you heard elsewhere.
No, but I am not asking to pronounce that judgment based on not so based on what they said. Mm-hmm. But I just want to know in your mind if there's a difference in standing or style with what Mr. Golden said about Miss Holness when she say according to the Constitution and legally she don't do anything wrong.
Yes, and we are agreeing with you, Faithful. We heard you and we said it's a legitimate question. What's the next point?
The next point, but I'm going to go to the next point. But everywhere else, I say they are saying the point. What they are saying that for us to discuss moral with Mr. Golden, he was in accordance with the law. So when he's in accordance with the law, he doesn't do anything wrong. Right. But they say that Miss Golden did something wrong. Right.
Well, I don't think anybody said she did anything wrong. People were saying that it made them uncomfortable.
There was, I'm not going to call them by this name, but many other on different radio stations, they were saying Miss Old, they foresee the problem was coming, and Miss Old the Prime Minister should never appointed her.
Yeah, no, right. So it's not about it's not about doing anything wrong. Well, the Prime Minister didn't appoint her. Good point, Siobhan. But it's not about doing anything wrong. They were saying that the perception made them uncomfortable.
Exactly. So
we agree. Faithful, we agree.
Good.
We agree.
Yes. Let's move on to it. Anyway, I will start Friday night. Give someone a chance.
All right, Faithful. Now, I see people bringing our attention to Section 40 and Section 39 of the Constitution. It's something that I've been looking at. The qualification and I guess you call it disqualification clauses and who qualifies to sit in Parliament. I've read it, and on its face, a question has been raised about whether Commonwealth, it would raise the question as to whether a Commonwealth country can be considered a foreign power, right? I've looked at it. I've spoken to lawyers, and they say on the face of it, it seems problematic. However, in the case of one of my friends who is an attorney brought my attention to that, in the case of Dabdoob versus Vaz, the Court of Appeal appeared to take it as a given that Commonwealth did not mean foreign power, right? And I think I heard Emily Shields this morning also saying that if I understood her correctly, in her mind it's an open question, right? Because she's not so clear whether the judgment of the Court of Appeal settled that matter.
There's always been just a layman interpretation that the Commonwealth means the former territories of the British
Right, and it wouldn't and
Empire.
it wouldn't constitute a foreign power.
Precisely, whereas
in
the United
context of
States is quite literally a foreign power.
So it's an open question. And I see people asking us to opine on it. I think it's an open question. That I understand from what I've read,
which we hope to now settle with this constitutional reform process.
Yeah.
Cleveland, evening.
Yes, sir, Mr. Shaman and Mr. Ricardo Brooks.
Hey, Cleveland.
How do you do?
Me good. How are you?
I give thanks. I noticed something. I don't know if you people notice it. Mr. Golding seems like him having members them under the wrap, you know, them afraid to talk. Mr. Golding, when he was I see him and Miss Dana and Mr. Hilton, they stand up, and this tall man just stand up between them. And then just lap them
Cleveland.
It's like they look frightened.
No.
And careful what they're saying. And it's the same thing in the house. The man them just sit down so behind him, fold up. When them beside him, the Robinson. Like him just afraid to open him out and something. Notice that?
I think that's just your interpretation of Cleveland.
But sure, I want to notice that. Sure. Him seems to have them under wrap, man. Them have to be careful what them say. They just look away.
All right.
You know?
All right, Cleveland. Okay.
And to see this man in the house there.
But Cleveland, what if it was on the other foot? What if what if there was dissension among the wholeness ranks? Wouldn't you ask for the party members in question to come to some consensus and agreement with their party leader?
And here's an interesting comment on YouTube from Cheese D Man. It's called Party Unity and Discipline Cleveland, which was lacking before.
Because I'm sure the PNP have the internal discussion.
Yes.
Lacking in the PNP?
Yes.
I'm sure both political parties have their internal discussions and their disagreements.
Let us be clear, Cleveland. Let us be clear. There are comrades who call me, message me, and they're unhappy with a lot of things. But as this person is saying, party discipline, people don't speak out publicly, which is not unusual.
A good example, the cabinet must agree publicly, even if they disagree privately. So if you disagree with the cabinet fundamentally, you have to leave the cabinet.
Boy, to me, investor, me just see them on TV while I look back on it. I say, but look how these two people just stand up there with this big, tall white man between them. Like them afraid to say
what does your race have to do with it, Cleveland?
Me I'm on a race, me tell
you. You said this big, tall white man. What is the white man part? Why is the white man part necessary?
It make it worse now, Ricardo.
I see.
That the man have his foot still in England and want to come take up leadership in this country, where majority of our people is black people. No, sir.
If Mr. Golding was to renounce his British citizenship tomorrow, would you be satisfied?
I wouldn't satisfy at all.
By the way,
neither, because guess what? I mean, they're too long and pretending.
By the way, I think it was on Smile Jamaica. He made a comment, which I don't know if anybody has challenged him or pressed him on it, that he would renounce the British if the people require it.
Yes, he said it.
That's what I wondered how he would come to a determination as to
requirement. I'm wondering if he's calling for a referendum.
That feels like a cop-out to me, you know.
Oh, come on.
Then do a poll?
Come on.
I think I share your simple position. He should just renounce the British citizenship. You're aspiring to be the leader of the country. Just set the example and renounce it.
I'm not have no more things.
Stop hiding behind the legality.
Because the truth is, the only reason you'd want to hold on to it
is you find some merit in it.
Precisely, and you place that merit above your responsibility and loyalty to Jamaica.
Well, maybe him have some benefits to get, and then in children, then probably will.
There are benefits of citizenship for sure, and there are obviously benefits of being belonging to being a citizen of the United Kingdom.
Moral and physical leader of the country of Jamaica.
For me, it would be the ultimate act of loyalty to Jamaica and to show that you place nothing else
Yes.
above your responsibility to Jamaica to renounce it. And that's what I think is the right thing to do. It's a no-brainer for me. I'm surprised that we're still this far along. We haven't heard that he has
play devil's advocate.
sent that
I wonder if
application.
the PNP is of the mindset for him to do it now and look as if he's caving to political pressure from the JLP.
No, I think he would come out of it, if he should do that, looking like somebody who is serious about leading this country. I don't think it would be about anything about caving.
Hello, sir.
That's what I think.
I'm trying to play devil, but as I said, I agree with you.
As my grandmother would say, the devil doesn't need any advocates. But you know, Cleveland. Well, the Prime Minister already laid down a line that it is incurable. In other words, even if he should do it now, he ought not to be forgiven.
No.
No,
because I mean they're too long, and in not really real at all, and going on with so much things. You know, the next person, Mr. Bunting. You see him at the police thing gone there. Him is an invited guest, and gone take over the meeting. I don't understand. And he want to be Minister of National Security if in party should ever come in. God forbid.
Well, you know my position on that. My position has been consistent. Politicians, especially those in opposition, should not pursue this scorched earth approach.
I've never understood it either.
Because the same people and the same institutions that you denigrate and tear down in opposition are the same ones that you'll have to work with if you form government.
They should never support him. Never, ever. Then they expect we to have respect now for them. Oh, man, sir. No, sir. No, sir. These TMP people go on like they are gods and want to be gods over everybody in this country. And I hope the people don't make that happen, that them ever see God knows as government.
Well, Cleveland.
But we will be in trouble.
Well, it is for the labor rights to go out there.
They put we back in more trouble.
And make the case. All right, Cleveland.
All right.
Omalo.
Good evening, Ricardo. Good evening, Siobhan.
Good evening, Omalo.
Yeah, listening to the debates and, just going along thinking, I'm wondering if we're just worrying about constitutional reform to change from the British monarch to a president without any real accountability of greater governance in Jamaica where this office could serve.
As in the office of the president?
Of the president. I ask myself, what purpose, what the Governor General, how does the Governor General improve the life of Jamaica over the last, 61 years since we had independence? How does the Governor General affect crime issues in Jamaica? How does it affect the standard of living in Jamaica? How does it affect anything that socially happens in Jamaica where Jamaicans are suffering from? Shouldn't we be focusing on creating an office where it is greater accountability, where it gives the Jamaican people a greater sense of governance?
All right. Those are fair questions. However, we have to be careful, Cleveland, that... I'm sorry, Omalo. I'm so sorry, Omalo. That we do not conflate things. Because the things that you outline are properly policy considerations, right? Matters for the elected government. Now, if it is that you're saying, and I'm asking, that you'd want to see an executive president who would have a direct hand in dealing with those matters, is that the understanding?
Well, you see, there is not one way where we could get a president that really serves the interests of Jamaica. It doesn't have to. We could give I see it as a way where we could give the president title, where he oversees certain things that holds that he's almost a watchdog to the executive. Where, say, for instance, the president is he oversees ethics and constitutional matters in Jamaica.
But then remember, Omalo, we have institutions that are so charged. So for example, when you talk about overseeing the executive, there is an institution that's supposed to do that. It's called Parliament.
Which institution is it?
It's called Parliament.
Parliament.
No.
Parliament overseeing Parliament.
No. Parliament is the legislature, and I know that
conflate the legislature with the executive.
So we're talking about now the backbenchers. We're talking about the opposition MPs, and Siobhan raised the point that we don't always practice Westminster government in this country as it is meant to be practiced.
We don't have the size.
It's not
and
a
if
size
we
issue.
see
It's not I don't think it's a size issue. I think it's an issue of how
we don't have the values then, and we don't have the morals.
That we can agree on.
Or we are not mature enough. And if we, at this point,
Our political system has been corrupted completely.
But what we should be careful.
Point in our life, 62 years, seeing this is not working.
But what we should be careful.
Wait for 62 more years.
But we should be careful.
To get any real accountability.
But we should be
over their
careful.
governance.
We should be careful, Omalo, not to think that a president is the fix for that, because to concentrate all of that power that you're outlining in the office of the presidency could create its own problems. So I think what is better is that we advocate for the strengthening of the arrangements that we have now, right?
Now, what you do, Ricardo.
So let me
institution.
So hold on, let me finish the point. So for example, the Senate, they've said that they're going to add independent senators. Perhaps what needs to happen is that chamber, which is supposed to be the sober, deliberative body, perhaps it needs to be given additional powers of oversight so that it can summon people, that it can launch investigations. But what has happened now, the Senate has become a refuge.
You're talking about
but we are talking we're talking about constitutional reform, and you're suggesting that those powers be placed in the office of the president.
Be voted in?
Well, as it is being proposed, no, they're not going to be voted in. But
it's allegiance to party.
No, but that's what I'm.
We're speaking hope.
No,
when you have allegiance to party, we the Jamaican citizens are speaking hope.
But that's what I'm saying, Omalo.
Have allegiance to party.
But that's what I'm saying, Omalo. So maybe the conversation needs to be, how do we strengthen the mechanisms we have now? I for one am willing to entertain an elected Senate. I have no great difficulty with that. That's not what has been recommended, but if the people of Jamaica clamor for it, it can become a reality.
Ricardo, there is no difference in strengthening it. But if you see, you can apply new institution with teeth.
But we have done that, Omalo.
We have applied it. We have put in institution without any real power. We have, say for instance, there is a certification supposed to be given every year, and a report on people in Parliament. And if 3 years can pass and you have nothing.
No, but that institution. No, but the problem. Hold on. No.
Just a minute. You have after 3 years, you cannot come to me, the boss of these people, and tell me what my servants are doing. Then what real teeth is there?
No. I don't think that's correct, Omalo. The Integrity Commission has been given prosecutorial power. I don't know what greater teeth it could have.
Has used it.
The question you're asking is why it has not said something. That doesn't mean it doesn't have teeth.
It's not a matter of saying something. It's not just saying something. It's a matter of knowing that after 1 year, after 6 months, you should come to the people of Jamaica and informing them of what
that's not equivalent to not having teeth. It has chosen not to speak.
It can't do that.
No, it's not that it can't do it. It has chosen not to do it.
Oh, it has chosen not to do it.
It has chosen not to do it.
So is there any law in place giving them this, instructing them that this is their obligation to the Jamaican people?
To do what? To report within a particular period?
After a certain period of
no, but
time.
I think that's problematic.
But that's in the form of an annual report, which
they
do.
Right, they produce an annual report, but it's also problematic to set time frames on investigation, because then that could lead to things like it being rushed, it being shoddy.
There is something being investigated there.
They have said that they're investigating 6 individuals.
No, I'm not talking about the 6 individuals. I'm talking about when a report is supposed to be done. And a report, after years, 3 years.
You're speaking specifically about the certification of the...
There is no verification on the report. And you don't come to the Jamaican people that this person is working
Omalo, you're jumping from point to point and you lose me. There's no report to be signed off. Are you talking about the statutory declarations?
The statutory declaration.
Okay. And you're saying what about those?
And I say just what I said. After 3 years, nobody comes to Jamaican people and tell them what is the case.
Yeah, right. So that's not evidence that they don't have teeth. If your call is for them to say something, okay. We've said that as here as well, that they should table a special report explaining what the problem is. But I don't think that equates to them not having teeth.
Institution. And we are creating institution. Institutions supposed to instruct them as to, just like how you say, I'm filing for some documents from what's that place name? I want some documents on how the government is functioning and all of this. There is a timeline. There is as to how you get these documents after you file for them.
So you want the law to be amended for them to have a time frame within which they must report?
They must report to the Jamaican people.
Okay.
The next thing I want, let me quick go to something.
Mind you, I also think the parliament can summon them and question them. So there are mechanisms, which is why I said you need to strengthen them and make sure that they work.
I don't want to hear about them. I want to see them work. Yes, the next thing, I know you're against dual citizenship, yeah?
Absolutely against it.
But I'm for dual citizenship. And why I would say I'm for dual citizenship, it's based on one term. And one term only. And this term is that I think the highest allegiance to a government, to a country, towards the most highest allegiance is paying your taxes and the fight in a war. Jamaicans, we don't go to war. But paying taxes, that is something I think all Jamaicans should do.
I would like to think citizenship is more than paying taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. But you also...
Please, give me a second to suggest what I'm suggesting.
I thought you were finished. I thought you were finished. Sorry.
Why I support it?
Mm-hmm.
Why I support it is that anybody that is going to serve in our parliament, if you are dual citizen, whatever taxes on any income you make abroad and locally, you must pay taxes in Jamaica. Whatever you make in America, whatever you come to Jamaica and make, you must pay taxes on it in Jamaica.
I think the IRS in the United States might have a word with you about that.
Which again, but you see, but Siobhan's point is valid, and this is why both. Hold on now.
American anywhere in the
world. Hold on now, and this is why the two suggestions you just made are problematic. One, because there's that. So those tax collecting institutions for whatever other country you have dual citizenship might have a problem, and then creates a problem for you. But second,
some evidence that you know that it is so.
But secondly, the other point about having to fight a war, the very fact that you have dual citizenship means you can opt out of that.
And what if that war is with the very country
that you have? Exactly.
Ricardo. Listen to what you're saying.
I think you like to theorize. Hold on. Hold on.
Ricardo. I said we don't fight war here in Jamaica.
And my response to you,
we have been so lucky as to not required to be fighting.
My response to you is that hold on. My response to you about that war issue is that because we have not had military conflict does not mean we'll never have military conflict. And so you can't. What?
Is it a fairy tale you're talking about?
No, it's not a fairy tale. You can't make.
With Cuba.
You can't make constitutional law.
I don't think Ukraine was expecting to fight a war this generation.
I don't know what Omar is talking about.
This is a different placement. This is a different geographical area, man. What are you talking about? Let's reason with some form.
I don't.
Yes,
the point Guyana was expected to be faced with the level of military action that it made.
There we go. I don't know what you're saying, Omalo. The fact that something has never happened doesn't mean it can't happen.
Oh my God, yo!
In fact, all the leaders.
You can't reason like this to the Jamaican people.
No, you can't reason like you can't.
Possibility of something.
And that is how you make
war. With Jamaica is going to war.
Then why do we have constitutional provisions why do we have constitutional provisions surrounding war and conflict?
Omalo.
I'm talking about the most highest
Omalo.
of allegiance to a country.
That is your opinion. It's not a fact.
Fighting for your country.
And I'm saying to you, Omalo, that one, you're wrong, because I don't know that was the highest allegiance of citizenship. But I'll take you at your word, and I'm saying to you, the fact that a dual citizen may opt out of that is in and of itself problematic.
Opt out of what?
Of the requirement to go to war.
Yo, bro. Yo, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
My problem with him, and the last time he came here and spouted nonsense about law.
I recall that.
He was soundly wrong. He doesn't listen.
Knock on wood that Jamaica never has to face a situation.
Yeah, we hope so.
And
we definitely hope so.
Geopolitically, it is certain that we would. Unlikely, but I then consider other situations.
The world is changing.
I consider other situations. What if a conflict erupted between, say, the United States and China? Jamaica would be a prime target, actually. People don't understand things. And why would we then reference the need for wartime provisions in our constitution if we do not at least have some level of caution and that the world, as you said, is changing?
And you make constitutional provisions to try to be as broad as possible so that it can contemplate possibilities. Yeah? Anyhow, that's all the time we have. Yeah? Thank you, Dana Davey, Andrew Anderson, Mahiri. He said hi. The news and production team, all our callers, YouTubers, thank you so much for your time this week. I'm Ricardo Brooks.
And I'm Siobhan Campbell.
Good evening.
Experience Jamaica's Olympic triumphs in Jamaica Gold. A gold